Tendai Warrior family, Hotep, Uncle Ja, Seneb, life, prosperity, and health, as spoken in the ancient Kemetic language. African power for all African people. I am very, very pleased to be here with you all. I'm pleased to announce that we've got the show started on time today with I should say no, but very few technical hitches and none that were, you know what I mean, able to delay us from being here with you, brothers and sisters. So, as you know, I always do, kings and queens. Just let me know that, first of all, 1 second. Just let me know that you can see me and hear my voice, kings and queens. You know what I mean? Let me know that you can see my beautiful African face and hear my beautiful African voice. You know what I mean? So click a 9, you know what I'm saying? Click a 9 or give me some red, black, green in the chat if either of those things apply to you. You know what I mean? Don't worry if you think I'm good looking or not, kings and queens. As long as you can see my face, that's enough. And hear my voice, that is enough. Big up to I Love Soil Do You. You know what I mean? Representing regularly in the Shakara Speaks chat. You know, these days I do appreciate. Het her. African power, we give thanks. And brother Delali, my brother, greetings and reparations, you don't know. So once again, kings and queens, if you can hear me, give me a 9 or fling some red, black, green in the chat, you know what I mean? Because we're there, and we're gonna have a beautiful conversation right about now. Yeah, okay. It's looking like the visual is a little bit choppy, so we may just go to the images so we can just have a bit more of a flow conversation. Bring up to Amelia N. You don't know. All right, family. So we're here, and this is going to be one of my favorite conversations, I'm sure, ever in life, because we are talking about the subject of repatriation, the subject of returning to the motherland to live. And I have as guests with me a brother and a sister who have made that move, kings and queens. I have the pleasure of having met or knowing both of these individuals. And I can, you know, confirm for you that they are powerful. One of them you would have seen going viral on your social media recently because of the work that she has been doing in the community, kings and queens. But you know what I mean? Yeah, it's going to be a good conversation. Before we get into that, though, I do want to let you know about Afrocentricity International. I've been asked by my good brother Jegna, who is a member of this organization, to share this information with you. And so the group that is called Afrocentricity International, which is headed by Mambo Ama Mazama, who you heard me speaking to about a month ago, kings and queens. Mambo Ama Mazama over there in Philadelphia, United States of America, who was ministering to us on the beautiful subject of voodoo, you know. But they have a launch, a UK launch, yeah, on the 27th of March 2019 at the Ma'at Centre, 366A, High Road, Tottenham, London, N17 9HT, kings and queens. And at this particular launch, they will be screening the film 1804, The Hidden History of Haiti, kings and queens. A film, very good film on the Haiti Revolution, quite informative, you know what I mean? So, yeah, if you want to find out more, just hit up Just Tickets, and I'm going to put the link in the chat shortly, kings and queens, you know what I'm saying? Just Tickets, and search Afrocentricity International, and you'll be taken to the place where you can get tickets and more information on this beautiful event, you know what I mean? Organization is the key, kings and queens. Organization is the key. And so we look forward to seeing you there on the 27th of March. Yeah, so we look forward to that. All right, forward. I'll give you more details on that later on. But for the sake of this conversation, coming forward to this conversation now, my family, we are having this conversation titled "Back to Africa," first-hand experience from returnees. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, to the motherland. And you know, it's important that we have this conversation. There has been a lot of conversation recently about Pan-Africanism, about the extent to which Pan-Africanists travel to the motherland to live, and about what brothers and sisters who travel to the motherland to live meet, yeah, when they go there, in terms of their opportunities for citizenship and otherwise, and you know, how the people them and all kinds of different things, you know what I mean? So we want to get some first-hand experience. We want to know. You really want to know, yeah, what is the reality of the situation? We don't want to sort of speculate. We want to hear from those who are doing that work and taking that journey, with the understanding that, you know, there are pros and cons to all these things. There are joys and there are challenges. As Frankie Beverly and May say, joy and pain is like sunshine and rain, kings and queens. You have to take the good with the bad, and, you know, keep it working. At the same time, we understand that all of these things are taking place within a particular context, and we are still, you know, waging a fight, kings and queens, for our total liberation. And so we don't. I was listening to Kwame Ture the other day, and he says, you know, revolutionaries always look for difficult challenges. Yeah, because we understand the work that it takes to get to where we want to be, and so we don't look for easy challenges. We look for difficult challenges. You know what I mean? So with that, I'm gonna start by getting both of my witness, the nap of them gone, you know, and the big shave off, you know what I mean? I have a 9-month-old, and we recently had the naming ceremony for my son, and so symbolically, ritualistically, and spiritually speaking, I'm starting again, basically, you know what I'm saying? I haven't seen my hair this low for nearly 10 years now, and in fact more than that actually, because my hair was K-Lo before. So yeah, you know what I mean? My people are laughing at me because it's the first time they see me about natty, you know? So that's how it got. But yeah, so at some point in the next week or so, I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to be breaking down my son's name. Yeah, the beautiful African names that we've given him, what they mean, and the reasons why we gave him those names. So do stay tuned for that. I look forward to sharing that with you all. But yeah, let me begin by getting my guests to introduce themselves. And unfortunately, they won't be on camera because of the, you know, the bandwidth issues that we have going on, Kings and Queens. So you won't be able to see their beautiful African faces, but you will be able to hear their beautiful African voices. So as we say, we're gonna put the queens first, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna get to Sister Shakina Chinedu to just introduce herself to the family. Are you ready, Sister Shakina?
Good evening. And how are you both?
Bless, my sister, bless.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm Sister Shakina.
Sorry, sister, just making sure that people can hear you as well. So if you can hear Sister Shakina, click a 9 or give me some RBG.
Okay, I've got some breaking.
Just so you know we can. That's fine, sis. Yeah. So once you hear me conclude the statement, feel free to go through. All right. Yeah, I should announce that as well. There's a bit of a delay. Yeah. On the line also. So you know, this day what Kings and Queens are gonna get through it. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get through it. All right. Thank you for letting me know you can hear Sister Shakina. And Sister Shakina, feel free to go forward and introduce yourself now.
Okay, and I've been given strict instructions to do a couple of shout outs. I must do that before I forget, because my neck will be on the chopping block. So I have to say hello and blessings to my brother Barrington, who also lives out here from time to time, my sister Tessa, Auntie Jadida, who also moved out here, and of course Marley Morris, who runs Messiah's Restaurant. And I thought I'd just mention those few names because those are the people that I hang out with quite a bit. So I just thought I'd mention those names. So me, you heard a little bit about me on the video, and I live in Gambia permanently. And I would find it very hard to come back to the UK right now because life is just so good out here. It's really, really beautiful, stress-free, sunshine, fresh food. Absolutely wonderful. I couldn't wish for anything better. So I'm here, and I've been here. I'm going into my 3rd year, and I'm really happy to be here.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Give thanks for that, sis. Brother Obadele.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Let me know, brothers and sisters, if you can hear Brother Obadele in the chat. Give me some 9s or some RBGs up in her. If Brother Obadele can be heard loud and clear. Yes, Brother Obadele. So Brother Obadele, Kings and Queens, lives in Ghana. I had the pleasure of meeting Brother Obadele randomly because I was staying at a place, Legacy Gardens, and he came to visit with his wife and children. And he said his name, Obadele Cambon, and I recognized that name. I said, I know 2 Cambons. I said, I know Kobe Cambon and Kamal Cambon. And lo and behold, he is the son of Kamal Cambon, Kings and Queens. I'm not going to say much about Kamal Kambon, but just YouTube Kamal Kambon and things will come up. You know what I mean? But greetings and welcome, brother Obadele. Just introduce yourself to the people then.
Okay, I'm Obadele Kambon. I'm a senior research fellow at the Institute of African Studies. I'm also the founder of Abibi Tumi, an organization. Abibi Tumi translates to Black Power in the Chi language of Ghana. I'm also the owner of repatriatetheghana.com, which is a service that assists Africans who are, of course, interested in repatriating to Ghana. I was one of the 34 Africans who got citizenship back in 2016 under President John Mahama. So I have my Ghanaian passport. I traveled to Cote d'Ivoire and Kenya on it recently. And yeah, full Ghanaian citizenship. So this is one of the things that we are looking to extend to other Africans of the diaspora and assisting them to make that transition so that they can, I always say, divest from all of these white nations and invest in Africa to make Africa great again.
Was your choice of words in that last sentence deliberate, brother Obadele?
So, so again, to divest from these white nations and invest in Africa to make Africa great again. Okay. So I actually gave a talk with that exact same title. Okay. Well, I did it, divest from America, invest in Africa to make Africa great again. And really, you know, going into how every single thing that we do, as long as we're in these white countries, it finances our oppressors. So every time we pay our taxes, every time that we pay our mortgage, every single time we pay our car note, every time we drink water or go to the grocery store, we're giving them the funds that they need to build the prisons, to buy the bullets that shoot us down in the street, to buy the bombs that they're going to drop on African people. That's financed by African people who are living in all of these white countries. So again, just like how in the 80s we talked about divesting from so-called apartheid South Africa, that we also need to look at divesting from all these white nations and investing, because nowhere in the world will Africans have respect until Africa is a world power, as has been said time and time again.
All right, well, boys, I mean, we're pulling out the Scotch bonnet pepper. Right. You know what I mean? You know what around for this side. All right, Kings and Queens. So we're here. We're gonna get into it. Big up to Sister 9E for 99. Don't know. You get me? Big up to my sister Shola. You don't know. Big up to Sister Shola from Birmingham, live in the place. You know what I mean? Big up to Prince Chirembe. Yes, indeed, Kings and Queens. You know what I mean? So as always, we ask you to click the like button and share the link all about the place. You want people from yard, foreign, and international to tune into this particular show. Spread this good African repatriation energy around the land of you know, the internet and YouTube in general. You know what I'm saying? And we're just doing this until we build our own internet, Kings and Queens. You know what I'm saying, that we can lock America out of. But you know what I mean, we're not there yet, so we're going to utilize what we have right about now. And yeah, share the link, Kings and Queens, and hit the like button just to make sure that we're able to, you know, heighten the presence of this particular conversation on the World Wide Web. All right. Okay, so let's get into this now, Kings and Queens. We're gonna get straight into it. I'm gonna start by asking Sister Shakina Chinedu, where you kind of said it, you're moving into your third year now. Moved in 2016, and kind of what motivated you to move, and like, you know, that when did you make that final decision? And between making the final decision to move and actually moving, how long did it all take?
Okay, well, I first visited Gambia in 2005, and that was an organized trip with Basil Links, and that was about, you know, reconnecting with your roots. And, you know, to be honest, my retirement plan since I was little was to go and live in Antigua, where my parents are from, and, you know, where my ancestors were taken. But however, as soon as I got to Gambia, I just realized, well, hang on a minute, this is no different to Antigua, really. And I thought, well, why am I going to Antigua when that's not really our place to live? And I immediately changed my plans and began to plan to come to Gambia and live there instead. So it was that simple for me. But then I had to have, you know, quite a long plan to make sure that the children finish university and things like that before I could move.
Okay, and when you moved, did you move individually, or did your children move with you?
No, my children are still in the UK. However, my youngest daughter is engaged to a Gambian who she met in the UK when they were both at university studying. So she's down here once a year to see him. So I do get to see her all the time. My son hasn't been out yet, and my other daughter has been out.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about that in terms of, I'll come back to that in terms of moving as a family and then moving as an individual. And the differences between that and them kind of thing. We'll come back to that in a second. Brother Obadele, when did you move to Ghana? What was your motivation? And between deciding to move and actually moving, how long did it take?
Okay, I repatriated in 2008. And one of the major factors immediately on the run-up, so I had lived in Ghana 2000 to 2001 on study abroad. That was for a year learning Chi. Before that, my mother brought me here in 99 and then 98. In 2000, she was president of Association of Black Psychologists. And they brought around 500 psychologists here to Ghana in the beginning of that 2000 school year. But she first came to Ghana back in 1972 with Nana Dinizulu, often credited for resurrecting the Akan spiritual system in the US. So I repatriated in 2008, but the immediate run-up to my repatriation was in Chicago, where I was teaching at about, no less than like 10 institutions: Chicago State University, Malcolm X College, Betty Shabazz International Charter School, you name it, I was teaching at it. And I was also doing survival training. So one time coming back from survival training, I was pulled over and I had a firearm in my trunk. That's the boot for those in the UK. And the police decided that they were going to say that it was under my seat and it was loaded so that they could get a felony charge out of that. So long story short, I was sitting on the witness stand. I eventually beat those charges. But as I was sitting on the witness stand, I said, never again will I allow myself to be in a jurisdiction where a white person can decide whether or not I see my family for 10 years. So if that would have happened, I would have just been getting out of prison probably last year. So I wouldn't have been doing my PhD and all these other things that I'm doing. I would just be getting out of prison in Chicago and joining the over 1 million Black people who are in prison.
Sorry, brother. Sorry, you cut out for a second there. Just repeat the last part. You said if that would happen, you would have probably been out of prison when?
Probably last year. So 2008 to 2019 to 2018. So again, as I was sitting on the witness stand, I said, I will not be in their jurisdiction where on a whim they can decide whether I see my family or not. And I said, within 1 year, I will repatriate. And indeed, I repatriated on the 6th of September, 2008, started the PhD program here 2009, finished in 2012, where I won the award for the best PhD. 2016, won the award for the best publication in the humanities. Got my citizenship also in that year. I was installed as a traditional ruler at Equipem Mampon. So very successful by any standards, I would say. And just living in Africa.
All right. So Sister Shakina, why did you choose Gambia?
When I think about Gambia, as I said to you, the plan was for Antigua first of all. But then when I came to Gambia, I realized it was better to be back where it began rather than where we were dropped off. So for me, it was very easy to make that decision because I come from a household where I was always told I was African. We were always, taught about Malcolm X, Kwame Nkrumah, Kenyatta, all these people. So Africa wasn't a strange place to me. My father always talked about these issues in Africa. So Africa was always a place that I was attuned to, but never really thought I could go and live there. Because, your parents are from the Caribbean, you've always been there as a child to visit. You just naturally thought, okay, that's where I was going to go. But 2005, when I came here, I just said, no, I can't go to the Caribbean. For me, the Caribbean is just a large plantation. So I'd rather come to Africa and the skills that I built up in the UK, I could bring them here and use them here. So it was quite easy from 2005 to just say, right, it needs to be a decision that I need to change. So, I mean, and it was a family decision. You know, I always make decisions with my children. I never make decisions without my children. So they always knew that I wanted to retire at 50 anyway, which is what I did, and leave the UK. So they were quite supportive with that. And they'd always heard me express that I would never retire in the West. It just wasn't going to happen. I've seen too many Black people walking down the street with their illnesses, just looking really sad. And I thought, no, I'm going to retire early enough where I could still enjoy my life wherever I went. And, you know, for me, it's really important as a parent to involve the family in all decisions and plans, because it's going to affect them positively and negatively. And also, I grew up in a household where my parents always shared decisions with myself and my siblings. So it was something that I was quite used to. And I've always done the same with my own children. But they knew it was an individual move. But, you know, their ancestral home is going to be here. And, you know, anytime the going gets tough there, they know they've got plan B.
Yes. I'm gonna. I think you probably just sent shockwaves through the listening audience, Sister Shakina, when you said that you retired at 50. I'm sure nobody actually considered the fact that you might be 50 years old. So we're gonna give them a little bit of time to recover. You know what I mean? From that,
I'm actually older than that.
I realize. You know what I mean? So you know, I think people are just, you know, they're like, yo, this sister cat, 50 years old. You know. But we love that Kings and Queens, as them say, black don't crack, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So yeah, family, we got Scattered Minds, we got Brother Ogun in the house, we got Mr. Lee, you don't know, Tanware, Ahmed, you don't know, we got all our family in the place. I mean, we love it. Yeah, Brother Obadele, same question to you really. No, sorry, before I come to you, Brother Obadele, Sister Shakila, was any other nation in Africa under consideration for yourself?
I went to South Africa in 2007, but South Africa was too built up for me. I wanted something more cultural. I went to Johannesburg, and although it was nice, I found that the people were still locked under apartheid. You know, if you try to ask any questions about apartheid, they almost looked over their shoulder first before they answered.
Yes,
and I found that quite disturbing. And, you know, the crime rate there can be quite high. I remember the first night I got there, and the taxi driver was driving, and he went through the red lights. I said, hey, aren't you going to stop? He said, no, sister, we only stop if we have to because of the carjacking. Okay. But, you know, when I was there, I just saw these high-rise buildings and things like that, and I just thought, no, that's not for me. What I want is traditional, where I can grow my food and I can live the way I want to. I mean, it's about country living for me. So Gambia really had done it for me.
Right. Beautiful. Okay, all right. Oh, but then a similar question, really. Why Ghana? Were any other African nations under consideration?
Yeah, one of the main considerations was I wanted to finish my PhD. So I started my PhD at University of Wisconsin, of all places, in African languages and literature. So I got one master's in that, and then another master's in linguistics. And I was looking to complete on the continent. So high up on my list were places where I speak the language. So I was considering, of course, Ghana, because I speak Chi. I was considering University of Ibadan, because I had lived there previously, and I also speak Yoruba. I actually considered Senegal or the Gambia because I speak Wolof, and then I also considered Tanzania and Kenya. I think because I speak Kiswahili, the main thing that really set Ghana apart was, one, I had done study abroad here, and it was my first time coming to the African continent in '98. Because I had been at the university, I knew a lot of the professors already. So, you know, I think that was really what tipped the scale towards Ghana over the other places. But I had been to Gambia, and it was beautiful. I always say that the Wolof culture in Senegal as well is one where they talk about teranga, which is, you know, like it's hospitality, but to say hospitality, it doesn't really do justice to how warm the people are. So, you know, I think I would feel at home anywhere on the continent, and I still would. but that was a major thing, was just that aspect of wanting to do my PhD and having links here at University of Ghana already.
All right. Oh boy. You know, I mean, there's a lot going on there. So, and this question as to, oh, well, obviously, I know you moved with your family, yeah. And so, did you already have children by the time you moved, and how what were the family considerations behind moving to Ghana?
Yeah. So at that time, I had my oldest daughter. She's now 11. At that time, she had not yet turned 1 yet, and you know, my wife, you know, actually at that time we were supposed to get married, but with what I told you about the whole trumped up gun charges, we were supposed to get married, but I was under restrictions where I wasn't able to leave the state of Illinois due to that trumped up charge. So we weren't able to have our wedding and other things. But once we beat the charge, then it was definitely, yeah, let's all repatriate. So we came together, myself, my fiance at that time, and then my oldest daughter. At that time, my fiance, she stayed for a month and then went back. There's a whole nother story to that I won't necessarily go into right now. But by the time my daughter turned 3, she came back and stayed for good. And for me, I've stayed for great. I don't set foot on U.S. soil. I don't even go to the embassy because that's considered U.S. soil. And my hope is to never set foot on U.S. soil unless it's part of a conquering army to restore Ma'at and to restore justice and drive out Isfet.
So if your family want to see you, they gotta come to Ghana.
That's correct, and they all know that very, very clearly. And they do come. Matter of fact, my parents were just here last month, and they'll be back in May. We do the Sankofa Journey, SANKOFA, and then journey.com. And that's where we bring Africans from the diaspora out of the UK, the Caribbean, and the US mainly, but anywhere they are, to Ghana. This year we're doing Ghana, Togo, and Benin. Our first year is doing Togo and Benin, but it's really, we say it's not a tour, it's a handcrafted, curated experience where you have I would say a deep experience with your own ancestors and with the land of your ancestors. So yeah, that's just a little bit on that.
All right. Okay. Interesting.
Can I just add something in terms of Gambia, why that was chosen as well? Gambia is still very cultural, which I like. It's not overdeveloped, although it is developing, but it's still behind somewhat. So that's quite nice. The economy is quite stable. Politically, there's been no civil wars or strife there. And even though we have many tribes, about 7 main tribes, but they all get on relatively well with each other, which is nice. And I think also it was quite easy to purchase land in Gambia, which is important for me as a vegan, because as I said, I need to grow what I need to eat. So that's really important for me.
Right. Oh, you kind of brought me to my next question there, sis. So you can just continue on from where you left off. But in terms of the ease, because obviously food, clothing, and shelter are, our primary human needs, so to speak, or should I say material needs. And so, the process of all of that. I mean, how easy was it to find a place to live, a place to make a living? If you don't mind sharing, if you have an occupation or how you're earning a living out there. You don't have to, but you can if you.
No, I don't mind at all. I'm running 2 businesses here at the moment. The first business is Nubian Health, which is about making natural products for the skin, but also encouraging healthy eating for our people. Now, that was started in 2015 in the UK, purely by accident, because I was on my way out, but it seems that the ancestors wanted me to stay a little bit longer and start this business. So I just went ahead and did that. So that's the first business that I run. And then the second business, and even though I'm supposed to be retired as a lawyer, I found that with some of the stories I was hearing about, people building and, sending money, builders not doing their work properly, their houses not being built properly. And I'm building my house by myself as a woman, which is quite unusual in Gambia. And I think, being a lawyer, of course, I'm going to scrutinize everything. I'm going to draw up contracts, etc. And I found I've had quite a smooth run. So I've decided to reopen the legal business and help people with their houses. So I project manage people's buildings for them. So, you know, they can send the money to me. I will manage it all for them, give them regular updates, and make sure that, you know, they don't lose money unnecessarily, because, you know, people work for their little shekels. And, you know, it's not nice when our own people decide that, you know, our money is not important to us, and they do things that they're not supposed to do. Sorry. And, you know, people have had some real horror stories here where, you know.
Sorry, Sister Shakira, you cracked up at the end of your statement there.
Okay.
So if you could just repeat some of it. I think the last thing that we heard is when you're talking about going into your law practice. You open back up the practice and the kind of things that you're doing.
Yes. So what I do, I draw up contracts for people. I project manage their buildings. I've just started representing people in court now through a power of attorney. So however I can help our people here to make their navigation smoother, I will do it as much as I can. So, you know, right now I've got about 3 or 4 projects on the go in terms of helping people with their buildings, especially if they're not here, because not everybody's able to be here 24/7. So if they're not here, then what I will do, I will take on that project for them.
Okay. And so but being qualified in law in the UK qualified you to practice law in Gambia?
Not necessarily.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to work full time in Gambia because, you know, it's 2 different systems. It can be very stressful. I mean, just this week we had a case for an eviction. We got to court 9 o'clock in the morning, and they've decided, oh, the night before, Social Security said we're having a training day. Right. You're having a training day, but we've got cases to do. They said, this is Africa. I was like, okay, just deal with it. Go home and try not to get too vexed and just deal with it.
Yes. All right. Okay. I'm sure we're going to come back to some of what you just said in a sec. But yes, stay tuned. Family, we're going to be opening up the lines in the second hour. Yeah. So do stay tuned. If you've got questions or comments, do note them down. We're going to try and get on as much people as possible. So do stay tuned for that. In approximately half an hour's time, maybe a bit more. So do stay tuned for that. Sister Shakira, you didn't mention well, you said you bought land, yeah?
Yes.
So you're building a house.
Yes.
So what was the process for purchasing your land and going through the building process? How you know what give our listeners an idea of how that works?
Well, for me, and, you know, being a lawyer, I'm going to look at everything with scrutiny. So as I said, first came in 2005, but I didn't buy my first piece of land until 2008 because I wanted to look at all the land laws, the procedures, and make sure I got it right. Because, you know, I've never bought land before, and I wanted to make sure I got it right, even though back in those days, I mean, I've got just under half an acre, and would you believe that cost me just about £1,000?
Wow.
Yeah, so this is why people have to come, you know, because there's none of us that could buy land in the UK. We could just about buy houses.
In London, £1,000 don't cover rent.
I know that.
Let them know.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, sis. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the first thing is to, you know, get your alcalo papers, which is like a chief of the village or the area that you're going to live. So they have to provide those papers, and even that process is very difficult because some alcalos are very scrupulous in their behavior. They don't behave very well, and they might sell one piece of land to 2 or 3 different people, but you're unaware of that. You know, you're buying it in good faith, and then you find out some years down the line, somebody else come along and say, actually, that piece is mine. Well, how could that be? I've got papers. So you have to be very, very stringent as much as you can. It's not easy, but there are ways around it that, as best as you can. And then once you've got that paperwork, then you get your sketch plans, which shows where your land is in the proximity of the area. And that comes from the government. So that's good as well. And then you get your official transfer paper, which shows that, you know, the land is transferred from A to B and you are now the owner. And then you have to get your land use paper. So whether your land is residential or agricultural. So agricultural, you shouldn't be building on that. You should only be growing, having a garden. And your residential is where you can you know, build your family home, etc.
Okay.
And then after that, you will get your sketch plans for your, your building plans from the architect.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll go back and get your building permits. You must have a permit, which lasts 2 years. So you've got to make a start within 2 years. Nobody really comes to check, but just in case, we have to, you know, adhere to the law.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I did all that when I came here. I didn't start building before I left because I wanted to be here when I'm building. So for me, we build compound walls here. So around the whole perimeter of the land, you build your compound wall.
Right.
So, you know, people know that's yours, and you put your gate up, etc. So that's done in my case. I've dug a borehole so that I can get water because I'm in a village, a proper backyard village,
Okay.
where there's no running water and electricity, but that's the way I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a borehole. I will be relying on solar, and I've got a sockaway dug, and my foundation is built and been to the rainy season. And also I'm using what we call earth blocks. I'm not using cement blocks because I don't think they're healthy. I think they can be quite telling on the body because you don't know what's in the cement these days.
Right.
So I'm using compressed earth, a little bit like what we had back in the day, not quite mud blocks, but they are compressed blocks. And, you know, they look very similar to our fire blocks in the UK. They've got a lovely red color because we have a lot of red soil in Gambia. And that's the type of blocks that I'm using. I'm encouraging other people to use as well because it keeps the house cooler, it's stronger, and I think it's just generally healthy because we should be going back to nature as much as we can. That's the whole point of coming here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that, sis. That's a beautiful breakdown right there. All right, I'm gonna come back to you, brother Obadele. Same question, really. Just looking at how you went about finding a place to live and avenues to earn a living.
Yeah, for me, it was a pretty easy transition. So as soon as I finished my PhD, my supervisor was the pro vice chancellor at University of Ghana, and he basically told me, "Okay, I'm putting you in African studies."
Right.
So you know, the employment was all worked out, and as I mentioned, I won the award for best PhD thesis. So it was pretty much a no-brainer. So I went there. And interestingly, when I defended my thesis, I was wearing my African cloth. You know, I had my beads on and everything. And then the same thing when I went for the interview, I said, y'all need to know what you're getting into, that I'm unapologetic African. So I'm not going to come. As a matter of fact, my supervisor, he said, he called me to his office. He was like, okay, I know you're not going to wear a suit and tie. I said, I'm glad you know that. He said, but please don't wear the cloth every day. You know, in Ghana, they wear the cloth. He said, just please don't do that every day. Because it's very conservative. And, you know, he was saying it out of love, like, yeah, you know, I want to make sure you do well here. But I think the whole Gandhi statue situation kind of blew my cover. Like, yo, I'm an unapologetic African. So I know where I'm coming from.
All right.
In terms of the housing, where I live is close to the university.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You had something?
No. I was gonna say we'll probably get into the Gandhi thing a little bit later on, but for now, go ahead.
Yeah. So I missed what you just said. You said what now?
Sorry, I said we'll probably get into the Gandhi thing a little bit later on, but for now, go ahead.
No problem. Yeah. I'm actually working on an article about the relocation of that statue, but yeah, we can save that for later. So yeah, the employment was not an issue whatsoever. And even before I came here, I made sure that I set up what's now abibitumi.com, where I teach Chi online, Yoruba online, and Wolof online. Then I have others who teach Kiswahili and Medu and, you know, other African languages. So I wanted to make sure I had that. And that's actually the main way that I funded my way through school. Because when I first came here, they thought I was a Ghanaian. And they were charging me 500 Ghana cedis per year, which was just a little over $100 for the entire school year from the PhD. But then when they saw my passport, they said, well, that's going to be over $4,000, which is a big price increase. So I said, you know, I have to make sure that I'm able to do that. So what I did, And I had a colleague was like, "Oh, you're probably gonna be teaching English there." I said, "No, you don't know me at all." So what I was doing was teaching African languages to Africans in the diaspora, and even that is part of assisting those who are interested in repatriating by learning the language. I always tell people it's an entirely different world when you speak the language versus when you don't. And so I'm sure others can attest to that as well. But it's I can't overemphasize that point. So in terms of housing, I'm close to the university, maybe about a 5-minute drive. But I'm building out in a rural setting, the place where I was installed as Bamuchidomhene, which is a ruler of the rear guard. It's the traditional military position, and then also a ceremonial position. And my responsibility is teaching the youth of the community how to defend themselves, and I teach them African combat capoeira in that regard. Also firearms training, things like that. So I'm also in a rural setting, just like Sister Shakina, and we definitely vibe on that same point. So I'm up to a similar level. I have the foundation there. I'll also be building with mud bricks, compressed earth bricks. They have a tech press out of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. So I have that there. Right now I have the foundation, and I have an 8-sided house. I have an architect who's really into similar things, similar worldview. And, I told him about the 8 original Necheru in the Kemet creation story tradition, the 8 original Momo in the Dogon tradition. So I say, yeah, I'm going to have an 8-sided house, and each one is going to represent one of those. So he was like, yo, I'm down. So we have a mud block house. Where I am now, I'm already on solar, and I'll continue using the solar when I'm up there. But yeah, it's just a matter of time. And I have half an acre. At that time, it was 3,500 Ghana cedis, which, just like the sister, is less than $1,000. So my parents have an acre immediately adjoining my plots, which is that's the plan. So that I'll be living there. My parents will be living right there. No nursing homes, no throwing your elders into a rubbish bin like how they do in the U.S. They'll be passing on that wisdom to my children, and they're already here, back and forth. We have a bed and breakfast called the Sankofa Guest House. You can see that at sankofaguesthouse.com. So we're doing a lot of things, but definitely we grow food on our land. We have also land at Abosamasi, so we grow food there as well. So cassava, plantain, maize, just different crops like that. There's a mango tree right there. So yeah, there's no point in coming to Africa if you want to still be living in the UK and the US. And it's at the edge of a cliff, or I should say a very steep slope, not quite a cliff that goes straight down. But from it, you get the sunrise and you get the sunset, and you see rolling hills as far as the eye can see, and the cleanest air. You can look down at the clouds because it's up on the mountain. So I tell people that, when I go there, it reminds me that I'm actually in Africa, because you can forget that when you're in Accra. But I'm there, and I'm like, yes, welcome to Africa, finally.
Yes. Well, you know what? I mean, all right. So I forgot to clarify. You're in Accra, Brother Obadele, and Sister Shakina, you're in Banjul.
No, I'm in Brusubi, phase 1. I've been there for 12 years now in my apartment. And I wanted to add something about the employment. Now, it's no use coming to Africa without a plan, because right here in Gambia, I don't know if Ghana's the same, it's not easy to get a job. And I understand that, the Gambians must take priority because it's a young country. The average age of the 80% of the population is 18 to 35. So a very young country, a young population. So what they've done to deter employers from giving foreigners a job is to hit them with a huge tax bill of 40,000 dollars a year. So it's not easy to get a job. But, The only thing with that, as much as I say I agree with the Gambians getting the job first, but there is a skill shortage.
Right.
And I think we could come in and help with capacity building until such time.
Yes.
Remember, we've been so-called independent, whatever that means, for over 50 years, but quite a few generations are illiterate still.
Okay.
Because it's only until Jammeh came in that we had schools in Gambia, really. So we've got, a couple of generations that are illiterate. So in terms of the skills gap, I mean, most of the lawyers are Nigerian or Ghanaian. Most of the civil servants are from outside the country. So, we do have a large skill gap. So, what I think they could be doing is to utilize our skills to capacity build until that gap is filled. And then, you can put people in those posts, because what tends to happen is that people are in jobs through nepotism. Either you're from the same tribe or your friend, your cousin friend, or whatever it might be. But it doesn't mean they can necessarily do the job. And we're doing ourselves a disservice by doing that. And, other people are coming in and taking liberties with that because we haven't got the capacity to do certain jobs in the country, to develop the country appropriately.
Point taken. All right. All right. So we're going to come back to some more serious issues in a sec here. First of all, though, I just want to ask the both of you. I'll start with Obadeli on this one. Just in terms of some general kind of. Let me preface this with this year. When I traveled to Ghana, it's my first time in Ghana, 2015. And I kind of went because I turned 30 that year, and I hadn't touched the continent yet, and I was not gonna make 31 find me. And I hadn't touched the continent, and I'm looking to reach back soon. So, brother, Obadeli, just hold on to that guest house for me, yeah, because I'll soon come to fill it up. You know what I mean? For a period of time. You know what I mean? So I'm called from there. So yeah. But I was there for just under a month, and for the first 2 weeks I was there, nothing could faze me. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I was skipping through the motherland. You know what I mean? And I was just enjoying everything about it. But obviously, every city, every place that you live has its stresses that come with it, if that makes sense. And so, inside of the third week, maybe the fourth week, I could start to see where the stresses will come from, if that makes sense. Where them kind of things there. You know what I mean? Even I was in my first week, I was sitting in traffic for all 2 hours and felt no way in Accra. And by the third week, I was like, this is long, man. This is long. You know what I mean? But that these things happen. So I just want to know from you, brother Obadeli, what were the things that you found it most difficult to settle into? Yeah, when you moved to Ghana.
I would say I had a bit of an easier time once I repatriated, because, like I mentioned, I lived here from 2000 to 2001 when I was doing study abroad. And at that time, I had every frustration that you could possibly have. The main ones were the white boy on a stick, the imaginary white boy on a stick, who some people call Jesus, the image of Cesare Borgia.
Yes.
Son of Pope Alexander the Second. The other thing is all the U.S. flags. So by the end of my year there, I said I have to go back to the U.S. so I never have to see another U.S. flag, because where I am, we always have red, black, and green flags. And so I never have to see another imaginary white boy on a stick. So, I was very, by the end of the time that you're there, it's one thing to read about neo-colonization and all these things. That's another thing to have it smack you in the face every single day. So by the time I came here to repatriate for good, I already knew the lay of the land. I already knew. So, to some degree, I'm like immune to a lot of things. Right. In terms of having like some psychological effect. Oh my goodness, so it's not like that. It's still, I speak on all of these issues all of the time. And I can actually see myself, there at the university making a difference.
Yes.
So some of the students there are like, yeah, why are we wearing white people clothes? And then they start wearing all African clothes. I tell them even my drawers are African. I have tailors and seamstresses make drawers from the African cloth, because John Henry Clark said, if you can't make your own drawers, you can't run no nation. That always stuck with me. So as soon as I saw a tailor and I saw cloth, I said, yo, we got to make our drawers. So I say stuff like this. And now the students who are there at the university are like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And now, we're in their hair with locks. It's like, why am I permanent? That don't make no sense. So, and it's not just me, there are others, but from my impact, I can see very clearly, students who are like, yeah, I'm not going to church anymore. Yeah, I'm not going to the mosque anymore. Like, they're telling me this. So, we're building a community of those who are rejecting that neo-colonial mentality and embracing what it is to be African in a holistic, lived sense, not just Pan-Africanism, but what does it mean in terms of, what you put on, what you do, places you go, who you interact with. Do you worship an imaginary white boy on Sundays? All those things. So just saying that to say things that I would say would be frustration. I dealt with most of those a good 18 years ago. And now I knew I'm coming to the front lines. So we have the Gandhi statute issue. We have the president wants to make French a mandatory language, whereas we don't have African languages mandatory. So what I do, I speak on it. And I find that the groundswell of people are like, yeah, that makes sense. We don't need these colonial mentality leaders. We need to go with what Dr. Kamban is saying. That makes sense.
Robert Obadele, you told me about this African drawers thing a couple years ago. Ever since I've been trying to get to the African drawers thing, and I ain't reached there yet, but I'm working on it. You know what I mean?
Keep your eyes on the prize, brother. No more. And you know what? One time I was at Abosokai, which is a whole neighborhood where all they sell is car parts, and a brother came up to me and said, "Yeah, I have these boxer shorts here. Here are the used ones, and these ones are new." I said, "What?"
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They get used drawers from dead white folks out of the U.S. and they sell those here in Ghana. And I was like, can you imagine a lower level of self-respect, dignity, and pride? You're gonna wear dead cave beast drawers? That makes absolutely no sense. So definitely keep your eyes on the prize on that one.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get there. And I can vouch for the impact that Brother Obadele is having, because when I got out there, we had a chance meeting at the Bois Center. Whilst I was there waiting, I met a young sister whose name I still remember. She gave me a European name at first, and I was in the habit of saying to people, but what's your actual name, your real name, and so she told me her name was Nana Donchua, and so she was studying at the university. And so me and my brethren got into a conversation with her about Pan-Africanism. So we were sharing some of our information, and she was so eager to know, because she wasn't being taught these things in the university. So because I knew that Brother Obadele was teaching, because I met him before this at this point, was teaching there. I said to her, well, this brother is teaching at your university. Get in contact with him. I'm sure he'll be able to, to point you in the right direction and these kinds of things. Just so happened that later on that evening we met Brother Obadele at the same place at one poetry reading that was going on in Ghana. So I was able to introduce that student to Brother Obadele, and that was a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? That was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I always try to do is make videos and other information available through our BB2Me. bbtumi.tv, bbtumi.com, and to really make sure that my videos go medicinal. So I say I don't want my videos to go viral. I want them to go medicinal, because there are too many viruses out there. So we need to get people getting the things that are gonna heal us, right?
Yes, sir. All right. Well, you know what I mean. Yeah, sister Shakina, same question to you in terms of what the things that you kind of originally was like ordinary everyday kind of things that it maybe took you a while to adjust to upon moving to Gambia. I know, for example, when I was in Ghana, sis, we had a car crash, and my sister, who was also a returnee, but she's from Ghana, was trying to go through the insurance process, and one of the brothers that became my friend out there basically said, well, yeah, like insurance is a myth, basically. Like, it's not going nowhere right here. And little things like that, you have to take a while to get used to it. So what were some of the things that took you a while to adjust to?
I'm still adjusting. I mean, for me, I'm always saying this is not the place to get sick. So being vegan really helps, because the state of the hospitals here, etc., is not fantastic. Right. So it's not something you can rely on if you get ill. I mean, in the 14 years that I've been going back and forth, I've never had malaria.
Right.
And I've worked really hard not to have that virus in my body.
Yes.
One, I make my own repellent, and two, I just, make sure I eat healthily, lots of moringa in my diet, no white sugar, and, healthy foods to keep my body healthy so that it can fight off any types of disease or anything that, comes my way. Sorry?
And plenty herbs, sis.
Oh, definitely. But for me, in terms of getting used to things, for me, I'm very passionate about our people in terms of who they are. And for me, without, upsetting anybody, religion has no place in Africa as far as I'm concerned. No structured religion. So Christianity, Islam, and that's what's keeping our people in the dark. But you know what's so funny about it? Because, Gambia is 99.9% Islamic.
Yes.
But yet, our people are so confused. They're praying in a language that's not ours. They're reading in a language that's not ours. But, they're still going back to the Obia.
Yes.
It makes me laugh because, they're doing all this, but they've got everything tied up around them. So, they're still serving two masters. So you see, spirituality cannot come out of us because it's there, it's part of us. So whether you're bowing down to whatever, you're still going to go back to the source, which is your spirituality. So, they tie up all kind of, as soon as the picnic barn, then tie up all kind of something around the picnic. Yeah, but they're still going to the mosque and whatever. And I'm very confused about that. But, the things in Africa, and we mustn't pussyfoot around it. Our people are still colonized.
Right.
Our people are still colonized. They're not free. So we shouldn't be surprised that, these things are going on because our people are very confused, and they will continue to be confused unless they accept what they need to accept, which is, their Africanness. Because everybody else has come and they've taken away. And it's funny because 3:00 this morning I was up, couldn't sleep. And what did I watch? John Henrik Clarke's The Law and Order. So where you were talking about, the African draws, he was talking about that in that very same lecture that I was watching this morning. So, and for me, the bleaching, it's just too much out here, too much. We've still got this thing about, light skin, dark skin. If you're light skin, it's better. Then we've got the thing, our sisters are spending enormous amounts of money on wigs and weave, and they've got beautiful natural hair underneath. And I just don't understand why they want to cover that up, because it's beautiful hair, absolutely beautiful. So there's a lot of work to be done in terms of, that mindset. But I think the biggest thing that it's still difficult to get used to is that even though we're here, we know we're African, but our brothers and sisters here don't always know we're African. They will call you Jamaican and everything else. Yeah.
So I was going to say, pause right there, because we're going to come back to that issue right there. We're going to come back to that issue. I'm just mindful of the things that you're saying and some of the things that I've seen and witnessed and these kinds of things. Also, I've got some Muslim brothers and sisters in the chat who would have said Allahu Akbar when you said that Gambia is 90-something% Muslim, but may not have appreciated much what you said after that.
I know.
You know what I mean? We all have our different spiritual persuasions. At the same time, we have to be honest about the fact of some of the impact of these things and how they came to us in the first place. At the same time, as the fact that traditional African spirituality is severely repressed in the continent of Africa. So there does need to be an affirmation of our traditional practices wherever we are. You know what I mean? And so it's a beautiful thing if brothers and sisters from the diaspora can come with that African spiritual fire, you know what I'm saying, and that pride, and demonstrate it on the continent. That is a beautiful thing, as far as I am concerned. Sister Shakina, I'm going to ask you though, what was when I went to Ghana, one of the most beautiful things, especially because I'm having lux, you know what I mean? Like the welcome that you get from the people is mad. You know? Like I got to the point where I thought my name was Rasta. And so but it's like the warm embrace that you get from people, like it's a different thing. You know what I mean? I never had a negative experience with anybody out in Ghana apart from the police. You know what I mean? That's another subject for another time. But yeah, like Babylon is Babylon everywhere. You know what I mean? But yeah, I just had such a warm, like the people. You know what I mean? This beautiful energies from our people. So how do you find just being among our people?
Yeah, I mean, I too, I mean, you know, Rasta baby, Rasta this, that, the other, they do appreciate, and I've got very long locks, so they really appreciate that. And some even say to me, I wish I could have locks, but, you know, in this country, it's seen as bad, you know, very similar to the same narrative we had in the Caribbean, you know, people with locks are not nice people and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, and even here, you know, the children are not allowed to go to school with locks.
Okay.
They're not allowed to do that. Some jobs, they may not like the locks either. Some people have told me they've had to cut off their locks to get jobs in certain hotels. You know, and I've said to them, don't you ever do that again. You know, your locks is your crown, so you have to protect that. But yeah, you're right. They do appreciate the locks, and a lot of the young men have free-forming locks here anyway. But as you said, even the police can treat them quite badly, negatively, because they think, oh, you know, they're just weed smoking, you know, bad boys and things like that. But that's not necessarily the case. They do it because they're following the Jamaican culture, the music, the culture, Rastafarianism. They're following that. So that's why, you know, that they've got the locks and things like that. So, but, you know, as I said, it's still seen as a negative by some of the older people, that locks is not a nice thing. It's not respectable hairstyles and stuff like that. So yeah, that can be quite difficult at times. But yeah, you're right. I get nothing but love, especially because of, you know, the length of my locks and everything. And that then gives me an opportunity to say, well, you know, you can have natural hair as well, especially to the women.
Right. Yes, brother. I'm gonna ask you this same question, yeah, but I'm gonna add a dimension to it for you. It just in terms of being an African from the diaspora, yeah. Are there any? How do people in Ghana kind of relate to you as an African from the diaspora who has returned home, so to speak?
It really depends, because usually when I'm talking to people, I'm speaking to them in an African language.
Right.
And the question that I get is, all right, you know, where do you come from? So someone asked me, all right, am I Asante? Am I this? Am I that? And I've always got that. So that's one of the reasons why I say that speaking the language is indispensable, because to really, and I don't want to use the word accepted, because it's not like you're out there begging, please accept me, but to really feel like a part of the society, I'll phrase it like that. The language is indispensable, absolutely indispensable. And I think about it when I'm just sitting somewhere, just joking with someone, just talking, and we're just chatting as African people. And you realize that African people got the exact same sense of humor that African people do where you were born and raised. Y'all laughing at the same stuff. You're just doing it in an African language. Whereas you wouldn't be able to do that if you were restricted to only the language of our enemy, oppressor, colonizing white, you know, neo-colonial enemies.
Yes.
So that's one. When, like, if I'm in a situation where, like, I'm giving a talk, or if it comes up that I'm an African of the diaspora, then, you know, generally speaking, like, if someone sees me, you know, and the major marker is that I wear African clothes every day, ever since I was somewhere around 18 or 19. I said every day of my life I'll wear clothing made by African people. Well, here in neo-colonial Africa, that will make you stick out like a sore thumb.
Right.
Also having locks like I do, that'll also make you stick out. So people will just assume off the bat that you must come from somewhere else.
Right.
I actually had one situation where I was looking, this is not too long after I repatriated, I was looking for an apartment, and the agents took me to a place, and when I was introduced to the guy who was basically the caretaker of the house, he was talking to the agent in Chi and saying, "Ono di onim se nimbo na yasi na so yebakase yasi na yin so yebajisika na yache." So basically, he was saying, "All right, the price is this, but let's say that the price is this higher price, and then you and I will split it up between ourselves." not knowing that I speak the language. So, you know, I don't say anything. So I go through, I look at the whole house, boom, boom. And as I'm leaving, I said, "Na krashi mpacha, what's it? What did you say?" You should have seen the look on this guy's face. And the agent said, "I didn't tell you he doesn't speak Creole." So, you know, I'm sure that he's probably still telling that story just from his perspective, though. But yeah, sometimes you get that type of thing. But then again, I'll say, for example, at Equapim Mampong, I have another situation where the land, my parents' land, which is immediately adjoining, there was a guy who doesn't own any land in Mampong whatsoever, but who goes looking for land that looks like it's unoccupied and then sells it to people. So my parents had already bought the land, but there's a Ghanaian guy who's a pastor, right? Or whatever that is, reverend, pastor, whatever the thing is. So he came up and said, "Oh no, this is my land." So essentially what went on is that where that land is located is near a traditional shrine, the major shrine at Mampong, the Nana Breko Madal shrine. So I was told that in that section, which is very rural, it is a farming section, that people are not allowed to go to that section on Fridays or on Mondays, which meant that if I moved into my house, then on Fridays and Mondays, I would have to leave my house and go stay somewhere else. But they said I would have to do a ritual. So I said, no problem. My mother is Nokomfo, which is a traditional healer and diviner in addition to being a psychologist. So I said, no problem. So I went to do the ritual, and there's a proverb in Chi where it says, which is to say, if you advertise your sickness, then you get the medicine that you need for it. So I told the people who are doing the ritual, this is the situation. This guy is saying that it's his land, my parents' land is his land, so forth and so on. And all of this is going on in Tree, mind you. So I said, you know, it's no problem. That guy who said he sold the land, he doesn't own any land. So we have your back. We'll install you as a traditional ruler, and then you'll have the back of all the other traditional rulers and families here. So look at the situation. Me, an African from the diaspora, I have continental Africans who are on my side because I practice the culture. I'm in there doing the ritual against a native-born Ghanaian who looks down upon the rituals, who looks down upon the culture, right? So I just give that as an example of it's not a thing of, all right, native-born Ghanaians versus diasporans. Sometimes it comes down to, do you have respect for the language? Do you have respect for the culture? Do you have respect for the spirituality? In that case, you will have continental Africans who will take your side and have your back over a continental African who's, you know, just whatever, a sellout or whatever, praying to a imaginary white boy.
Right. Point taken, brother Obadeli. Very interesting point, because that relates to some where I'm going to go next year. I'm going to ask one question each to both our brother and our sister, and then I'm going to open up the chat for those who want to join. Yeah, but that last point there, my brother, relates to a lot of conversation that has been going on recently, yeah, with regards to the idea of Pan-Africanism and whether Pan-Africanists are going back home and what kinds of responses that we're getting when we do go back home, whether our brothers and sisters on the continent want us there, and whether quote-unquote Pan-Africanism is quote-unquote reciprocated, yeah? And so, Sister Shakina, you had a video, or a couple videos to be honest, that went medicinal. My language has been corrected. One in which you were being interviewed on Gambia television. Yeah. And I must say, sister, you know, a lot of people were very proud of how you answered the questions there in that interview. You know, when you were asked about corruption and the like, you know what I mean, and how you responded. But then the next video that came out was to do with you fighting for citizenship rights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a brother by the name of Dynast Amir, also known as Search for Uhuru, who did a video entitled Confessions of a Pan-Africanist. Pan-Africanism hasn't produced anything tangible for Africans in the diaspora or ADOS, American descendants of slaves, yeah? And the example that he gave was the fact that, funny enough, was not an American descendant of slave, but a quote-unquote Caribbean one, which was yourself not being, fighting for citizenship in the Gambia. Very powerful video. You made some very powerful points. And funnily enough, brother, the same brother who did that video now has citizenship, was recently granted citizenship in Nigeria, as the story, which is interesting. But just a bit on that particular issue there, sis, on the issue of citizenship. What is it that the Africa, what's the organization called again? It's the name's out of my head. The Diaspora Returnees Association.
Yes, the African Diaspora Returnees Association.
That's the one, yeah. So I mean, what is it? What is the work that you're doing? How is it going? You know what I mean? What challenges are you trying to overcome? And how receptive are the people and the officials in the nation at this moment?
Okay, well, let me just give some context first. When we come home, we don't automatically get citizenship, and we have to carry something called an aliens card. And residence papers, and you know, we have to pay quite a lot of money each year, you know, between £50 and £70 a year, depending on whether you get a work one or a voluntary one where you cannot work. And I just think, you know, that's not suitable for us coming home by choice, returning home by choice. We didn't ask to be taken away from here. Are returning home by choice. We are investing in Africa. We want to come home and develop Africa, and you know, we should get something for it. So you know, we need the government to understand that we're investing our residual capital into the economy of the country, contributing to the GDP. You know, we bank here, we spend our money here. You know, we build houses, we sponsor schools, we employ people, you know, all these sorts of things, but it's not recognized because we're still carrying these aliens cards. But, you know, it just so happens that the time is right now where the Constitution Review Commission, under this new regime, they are rewriting the Constitution. So this is an absolute key time for us to get our message through. I am working with a prominent minister, that's a Pan-African minister in Gambia, who's been fighting the Pan-African fight for over 40 years. And he's been very supportive with what we're doing here. So I have been to the Constitution Review Commission because they are consulting around the country, around the whole country, in terms of, you know, what are the issues and what needs to be done. So I thought, well, let's get in now. So I did a presentation to them and submitted some evidence. And what I've asked them to do, requesting, is that we have an exception clause for the descendants of the enslaved, fast-tracked. Nobody else, just for us, the descendants of the enslaved. And what I'm saying to them is that if we have an exception clause of 2 to 4 years of continuous living in the Gambia, then we should get citizenship because it's our birthright. You know, our ancestors were taken from here. If our ancestors weren't taken from here, you know, you or I would have been born on the continent. So what I'm saying to them is that, you know, we have returned by choice, and what are you going to do for us? So I'm saying, you know, if they had this exception clause for us, and then in return, we will learn the language, any cultural nuances, continue to encourage returnees, which we do, promote the country positively, and continue to invest and adhere to the law. So that's really important, that we don't just ask for something and we're not, you know, giving anything in return. Now, the second part of that, which they don't know yet, we are going to be asking for our 40 acres as well. They can keep the mule, but I want the 40 acres. Once we get the citizenship, that's another thing that I'm going to land on them, that, you know, we should get our 40 acres, because then some people who want to come here and live within a community of returnees, and, you know, they should have the choice to do that if they want to do that. So I've already spoken to the largest building company here, Taft Global Homes, and what they're saying is that, you know, if you get the land, I shouldn't say if, when the ancestors present us with the land, we will have it and we'll have citizenship. We can design some houses that they will build on these 40 acres for us. So that's what the African Diaspora Returnees Association is doing in one leg. But on the second leg, it's about supporting people when they come, because, you know, it's never easy to navigate around, move, because, you know, you don't always know everything. So at the moment, we're putting a website together where we can give people the steps of how to open a bank account, what the process is for buying land, maybe buying a house, you know, getting your tax numbers, different things like that people may not know. And I get a lot of those queries from people. So I think, you know, we're going to put it on a website so that people are able to go on the website and say, look, if I'm thinking of moving to Gambia, these are the things that I need to know, and this is the support that I can get, because it is about supporting each other. When people move, we don't want to leave them on their own, because it can be quite difficult. So it's about supplying a support network for people when they move here as well, so that, you know, they can navigate more smoothly.
Yes, good, thanks for that, sis. Brother over there, I was going to ask you a different question, but I'm going to stick to this, and then we're going to invite people into the conversation. Just your kind of reflection or perspective on the issue of citizenship, attaining it. I know you just recently received it, and putting it in its broader Pan-African context. I know you're probably aware of a lot of the conversation that has been going on. Is the conversation viable? Do we have a just kind of gripe as African diaspora people returning home? And is it right that we, you know, charge our people in the context of governments with not reciprocating Pan-Africanism because of the citizenship issue?
Okay, so you'll see me, I'm holding up my Ghana passport. So just want to start off with that one right there off the bat. But just for the sake of bandwidth. So in terms of citizenship, as you know, I was part of, and I was one of the facilitators that assisted other Africans, 33 other Africans, in getting their citizenship here in Ghana back in 2016. We had a series of meetings that ultimately culminated in that. Now, in that same year, we were invited to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because they're working on a national diaspora engagement policy. And this is a policy that's supposed to extend some 50 years into the future, so that regardless of the political party that's in power, that this is the roadmap to engage the diaspora. Now, one of the challenges with that, we were in there, and it was just me, a couple others, and there was a woman who was supposed to be representing us, but who didn't invite any of us. And she was actually asked by the ministry, where are your people? Because she was saying she's our ambassador, so forth and so on. But I'll put that to the side. Anyway, long story short, we're sitting in there hearing this policy, and the policy is worded like this. This is how to renew your Ghanaian passport. This is how to get in touch with your hometown association. This is how to give remittances to your family back in the village. So when they're talking about diaspora, they were only talking about Ghanaians on vacation, essentially. So what we did is that we drew up a document and submitted it to the Center for Migration Affairs, who was tasked for coming up with that policy. Because what they did is that they went and interviewed Ghanaians in Canada, Ghanaians in UK, Germany, and I think Nigeria. And, you know, basically they were drawing up a document that would affect the lives of thousands of Africans from the diaspora without any understanding of what the diaspora actually is. You understand? So in the document that we worked for them, that we gave to them, we gave them a definition of diaspora in terms of what we teach at the Institute of African Studies, the THT model, which is thousands, hundreds, and tens. So thousands is the ancient voluntary migration diaspora. These are the Africans you find in Mekamui, so-called Bougainville, in West Papua New Guinea, places like that, people who left out thousands of years ago who are still Black and who still consider themselves to be Africans. And then two, and that's on a scale of thousands. Two, on the scale of hundreds, the recent forced migration diaspora, that's us. And then three is the only one that they had taken into account, the current manipulated migration diaspora, those who have been manipulated through IMF and World Bank destruction of African economies, through CIA coup d'etats and so forth and so on. They leave because of those things. And we asked for specific things, one of which was citizenship rights as returnees. Another one was waiver of fees for those living in Ghana 2 years or more, reduction of time to qualify, elimination of current requirements. Investors and entrepreneurs should be treated as the same as any African. All diasporans not born on the continent should have a different status, which is to say it's ridiculous for me to stand in line behind the British man who enslaved my ancestors, and we're both trying to get citizenship, and we both pay the same fees, and it's just absolutely insane and unjust. Accelerated processing for returnees with special talents, gifts, or exceptional projects. So these were some of the things that we discussed, a special liaison center, and we, submitted that to them. Now, another thing that I'm doing on my own, so that was a policy that went to the government, is repatriate to Ghana.com. So I mentioned Bibi Tumi, where we teach the African languages, also repatriate to Ghana.com. And I've actually assisted several Africans, on different things. They want to know about citizenship. They want to know about land. They want to know about other things. So that's a tool and a service to assist others, with that. So I meet with them. I give them any of the things that they need in terms of land registration and just basically someone who has contact. So I know people who work at immigration right now where I can call them up on the phone and say, assist them. That's something that I wouldn't be able to do if I just got here a couple months ago. But because I've worked with these people, these are contacts I have. I have people who, deal with land, who deal with surveys, who deal with all these things because I've been here for 11 years now. Yes. So using my position, and there's a proverb that goes to the effect of, if your brother is sitting on the tree, you should never go hungry, for fruit. And just a sense of, because I'm already here, I should now facilitate others in being able to, take similar steps. So that's what, I'm doing on that front.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, family. Well, you heard it here. You know what I mean? You have heard it here. You have heard it here. This has been a beautiful conversation so far. We're going to continue it for at least another 40 minutes, yeah? And we might do a little bit of overtime, but we don't want to take liberties with our brother and our sister's time. So I'm going to share the link in the chat right about now, yeah? There are two rules, yeah? There are two rules. One is, always respect, what I'm saying, Jewel? Yeah, you'll be showing respect when you come through. Please do respect the panel. And the other one is come through with your mic muted, yeah, for the sake of quality control. Come through with your mic muted. We'll try to get everybody, as much people on as possible. But come in with your mic muted. You can ask a question or make a comment. And please speak when you are spoken to. Yeah. So until we come to you and say, all right, speak, then please keep your mic muted for the sake of quality control. I'm going to share the link now. So the link is sharing. The link has been shared, sorry. So feel free to click that link and join the chat. You can ask Sister Shakina Chinedu or Brother Obadele Kambon anything that you like, kings and queens, yeah? Anything that you like. What I mean? I'll make a comment. I'm saying? If you are a returnee or somebody who is planning to return, I'm saying? Feel free to share your experience also. While they're doing that, Brother Obadele, I do want to ask you a question in relation to this idea of judging Pan-Africanism by the governments in Africa. What I'm saying? Because I know you're doing work out there, as you mentioned just before we came on and during the conversation. And the idea that our brothers and sisters on the continent are not inclined towards Pan-Africanism. These are some of the things that we're hearing at the moment. Is that impression true? And is Pan-Africanism, or the extent to which our people on the continent are Pan-Africanists, can you judge that by the activities of the governments?
Well, I'll start off with this. There's a course that Chimwezu taught, the history of Pan-Africanism. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who are talking about Pan-Africanism have probably never read a single book on Pan-Africanism. They probably never read the document produced by the 1900 Conference on Pan-Africanism. They, and I could go in depth into that, but people tend to be much more heavy on opinions and very light on knowledge, very light on research. And, that's something that gets you lots of views on YouTube. It does whatever for you. But I think it does a disservice to people. That's one. Now, coming to the topic specifically, I think it behooves us to understand that there are very few Africans either on the continent or in the diaspora. Why is that? And, I mentioned this in one of the classes. I said, in 1700, how many Africans do you think existed on the African continent? I would say very few, because what you have is people who identify based on their fragment. right? And you'll have people who will call themselves Wolof or Mandinka, or they'll call themselves Asante or Fante. They'll call themselves Yoruba or Igbo. This is their identity. And they have to, and I'll put this in the words of my Kikongo teacher. He said that Africans in the diaspora in many ways are more African than him, because he says he sees himself first as Dwozi, and then second as Manyanga, and then second, and he like listed all these 20, 30 different identities, going from town to region to clan to this to that, before he even sees himself as Congolese, before he sees himself as Central African, before he sees himself as continental African, before he sees himself as an African, black person who is related to all other black people. He said that's just the hurdles that he goes through before he comes to that. Now, because of that being stripped away forcibly, Africans in the diaspora, if they have any consciousness whatsoever, and not a whole lot do, but those who do will say, yeah, I identify. If they see a sister from Brazil, that's a sister. If they see a brother from Cuba, that's a brother. If they see a brother from South Africa, that's a brother. All those types of things. So our default setting is black people are black people. We're all African people. Now, again, to come to this point, oftentimes Africans of the diaspora, because they're not aware of these, factors, it comes up that they're expecting continental Africans, because they're born on the African continent, to be African. That is not necessarily going to be the case any more than you could expect a diasporan African to be African. Because even look at this thing, you have people who call themselves Americans, right? They would qualify biogenetically and phenotypically. If the police pull a gun on you, they don't ask, are you American, and ask for your passport. No, you're not an American. According to Malcolm X, he said, if you are American, you wouldn't be catching no hell. So if you're American, then how come there are more of you enslaved right now in the prison industrial complex than were enslaved in 1865? Where's your American? You understand? So that's one point. So not many Africans in the diaspora are African either, right? So now for us to expect the Africans on the continent are magically going to be African, that's not going to work. So step one is to actually create Africans, people who understand that to be African equals to be black, and to be black equals to be African. That's according to the people who invented the word Pan-Africanism. If you read that document, the declaration from the 1900 conference, they were very clear. That excludes the Arab invaders and all these other invaders who are here on African soil. So again, I wouldn't hold them to any more standards, especially when those who are doing the talking don't consider themselves Africans. They call themselves Americans. So anyone who calls himself American should not say anything about a continental African, because they are on the exact same par of being a sellout, identifying with a tiny fragment as opposed to identifying with the complete whole, which is being African. So that is the white rice calling the other rice white. You're doing something that's incorrect, and then you're talking about continental Africans doing something that's incorrect, and that's unacceptable. And again, it's because they have no knowledge about Pan-Africanism. They don't read about Pan-Africanism. They got thousands of opinions, but don't learn anything. They need to start learning before they open their mouths and talk about Pan-Africanism. And I'll close on that.
All right. Well, Scotch bonnet, my people. You know what I mean? The live link here is in the chat. So anybody who wants to join the conversation, I know a couple of people have said that they're having problems joining. COINTELPRO is real. But don't worry, we're going to try and overcome it right about now. So do stay tuned. I'm going to try and work something out. Sister Shakira, if you have anything to add on that, just looking at the issue of whether we can judge, Pan-Africanism by our governments, and to what extent are our people on the continent, even intrigued or organizing in a Pan-African way. You know what I'm saying? Are you encountering people, movements on the ground that are trying to forward a Pan-African agenda from people that are born and raised in Gambia?
Yeah, there's quite a number of young people now who have risen up since the regime change, and they are continuing to fill their self with knowledge on Pan-Africanism. So they are looking back to the founding fathers of independence, and they're asking the question, why are we in the state that we're in Africa today? When we were some way forwards before, but we seem to have gone backwards. So there are a lot of young people now that are saying, no, we need to go back to those days, you know, and demand that, you know, we rule ourselves, we're self-reliant, you know, self-sufficient. We don't want people coming in and taking over. We want to do for ourselves as Africans. And these are young people saying that, and they're getting quite vocal with that. You know, they don't want other people coming in and taking their birthright from them. And I think, you know, young people all over Africa, we've seen it in South Africa where, you know, young people are raising up about having natural hair at school and, you know, and different things that, you know, the young people now are saying, hang on a minute, we've given you, the older people, a long rope. You haven't delivered. So, you know, you need to give us the platform now. And I do agree with that. I think, you know, when we look back to the 50s and the 60s, those founding fathers of independence, they were the young revolutionaries. And, you know, revolutions always start with the youth. Always. If you look anywhere in the world, it always starts with the youth. And when we look at these older leaders that we have in Africa, they have let us down, because look at the state of our nations right now. You know, our doors are wide open for anybody could walk in. You know, people are coming, forming big businesses. You know, here in Gambia, the Chinese, the Indian, the Syrians, the Lebanese, everybody's coming in and making big business. And, you know, the young people are saying, hold on a minute, what about us? What are we going to have? What are we going to pass on to our children? You know, what legacy are we going to have if we don't stop this from happening? You know, if people want to come and invest here, yes, they can come, but it's got to be on our terms, not on their terms. And, you know, I do believe, you know, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, what deals are being made.
True.
But it's not in our interest.
Definitely. Thanks for them answers there. Two I'm getting from your last set of answers, my brother. Is one, is in terms of us as from the diaspora, kind of formulating and presenting the concept of what is an African diasporan, where what is an African from the diaspora returning home, so that there's some organized structure for the governments to understand what that means and structure legislation around it. Yeah, that's one thing. And the second thing is I'm hearing is that we need to tap into what's going on the ground. You know what I'm saying? On the continent, as much as possible, connect with the actual people, and judge our development from there, because we know that we know that the governments are not ours.
Well, exactly.
We know the governments are not ours. So yeah, we've got a few people in the chat now. I believe Witness was first, then Terry was first, and then I Love Soil. So Witness, my brother, my Yoruba brother.
Thank you very much, Shakara. Thank you. Peace to all the brothers and sisters here today talking. I just wanted to address a question you asked in regards to, in fact, I've actually said this to you and to Scattered Minds, that as a Nigerian, as a Yoruba person, you guys are more African than the Africans that I have come across. Because in the sense that the Africans that I know and grew up with, they think of things, and I think Dr. Oba Dele mentioned this, they think of things purely from the point of view of their geopolitical, regional perspectives, from their tribe, from their state. They don't look at the bigger picture. And I was trying to figure out, why is this? And I was doing some research, and I wanted to share something with you on the screen. It'll just take a few seconds.
Go ahead, bro. Go free.
And I was curious, why, oh, why is it that too many of us on the continent do not think from that perspective? And I came across this. Can you see this?
Yes.
At all?
Yes.
And basically, it's basically this, which is the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council. Now, they're responsible for creating the curriculum, which is what the children learn in school. And I was looking at things like the basics, mathematics, and I was looking at all the subjects. And when I go up to look at all the subjects which are taught, as you can see here, nothing relates to Pan-Africanism, which is a major problem, I think, because I think if they started educating children in school about the notion of what Pan-Africanism is, I think the future would definitely be a lot brighter in African countries, because that's just the problem. The subject of Pan-Africanism is not mentioned here. It says basic education, primary 1 to 3. And you can see English studies, mathematics, Nigerian languages, basic science and technology, regional national values, cultural and creative arts. This one I found very funny. Arabic language, which is optional. Arabic language, wow. Really? So I think that's the problem. One of the major problems. I think we need to start teaching children from the start about the importance of Pan-African fundamental problem. We don't have that. So that's why more and more of our future Africans aren't really on the same wavelength with the rest of the diaspora in the Caribbean or in the Americas on the subject of Pan-Africanism. That's all I have to say.
Fantastic contribution, Brother Witness. Fantastic. I want to Brother Terry, fantastic contribution there. Beautiful. I'm gonna just get Brother Obadele to respond to that. Specifically because he works in the university. And Brother Obadele, you know, when I came to the university, one of the things that was a major scandal, I say, as though I don't come from Jamaica and the situation is the same, but the idea that the books of Nkrumah were not featured in the university library.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, what are your thoughts on what Brother Witness has just shared?
Yeah, this is actually something that came up recently because last year they had the 60th anniversary of the All African Peoples Conference.
Yes.
Right, and I spoke there on Haiti, Morocco, and the AU, and essentially. And I just put into the chat the 1900 Pan-African Conference resolution. The people who invented Pan-Africanism, this is their take on what they meant. And all throughout it, you'll see that when they say black, they mean African. When they say African, they mean black, and they say that very explicitly there. Now, at this All African Peoples Conference, this is where you had the shift, really before that in 1945, but the shift away from African meaning black to now African meaning whoever happens to be on African soil, right? And again, so this goes against what those who invented the term Pan-Africanism meant by Pan-Africanism. And even the name All African Peoples Conference is a bait and switch where they'll get you to come there by saying Pan-Africanism, but when you get there, it's all Africanism. And what this means is anyone who happens to be on the African continent, whether they be Arabs, whether it be Dutch Boers, whether they be whoever, you know, all African, right? So that's the bait and switch thing. Now, in the talk, I was talking about how Haiti in 2016 applied to join the AU and were rejected. Meanwhile, Morocco applied to join the AU, the place where they use the word abid, the same word for black person is the word for enslaved person. There in Morocco, they applied to join the AU and they were accepted. And the major change is in this fraud Pan-Africanism, this all Africanism that calls itself Pan-Africanism, but really is continentalism. It's an anti-black strain of virus in and of itself that calls itself Pan-Africanism. So, you know, this is a thing that even before we get to, are they teaching Pan-Africanism in Nigeria? The other more deep question is, what type of Pan-Africanism would they teach? Would they teach the real Pan-Africanism as invented by those who invented the term Pan-Africanism, where it means black people regardless of location, or is it this fraudulent Pan-Africanism, this all Africanism, which means our very first enslavers, our very first rapists, our very first imperialists, our very first colonists, the Arabs who are in North Africa, where they get included, like the AU, whereas the people to whom we owe the end of the so-called slave trade, the Africans out of Haiti, they get excluded, they get rejected on the grounds that they're not on the African continent. This is the major question on the table.
Point taken. All right, with that, I'm going to come to Brother Terry. Feel free to unmute your mic, bro.
Yeah, I just wanted to put onto that in its perspective. Like, my grandfather was a professor, and what you would find in what Brother Witness has given is that you've got to look at who's the head of education. where's the head of education studied? Because before you can even become a professor in a university in Nigeria, they send you abroad to go and learn the European system, which you apply back into the African system. They don't really allow even the contents of even their own language, where you will find that they'll speak Yoruba or teach Yoruba in primary schools, but when they get to secondary schools, it's out of the window because it doesn't fit into the British or American curriculum. So there you would fall short. So when we're talking about Pan-Africanism, we have to bring a total and absolute new structure of education to the people, to giving them an alternative. But if you're going to go through the government system, it ain't going to work.
Brother Terry, just to clarify, you're from Nigeria, right? You're another one.
100%.
All right. I just want people to know that, innit? Put things into context. It's a Yoruba takeover, kings and queens, on the Shakara Speaks.
But I'm following the Queen of Republic of Congo because she's the only one with a heart.
I hear you. But just brother Terry.
Yeah.
Just because we've got brother Obadele who actually speaks Yoruba, yeah. So yeah. I want you to test him from there. Go on, test him.
Kilo Shele.
Kò sí ẹnìkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ṣé ẹ gbọ́ Yorùbá.
Wọ́n gbọ́ Yorùbá dáadáa, Ìjẹ̀bú ni mí náà.
Kí ẹ máa pẹ́ kí ìdí gbogbo àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá ní ọgbọ́n Yorùbá o. Ìdí rẹ̀ náà ni tí mo ti béèrè.
It's a background noise.
Òbúrò. Alẹ́ bára wa sọ̀rọ̀ àti ilẹ̀ òwe.
Mo gbọ́ dáadáa náà.
Mo ti gbọ́.
Ìjẹ̀bú ni mo ti wá.
All right. Stop showing off now. All right. Yeah. The listeners know that I ain't no children. Someone needs to mute their mic. There's their background noise. All right, cool. Yeah, so the listeners know that, you know, like when man said he speaks Tree and Yoruba and Wolof and Swahili, you know, say he's chatting the truth. You get me? You know what I'm saying? Chatting the truth. So yeah, he got tested by the authentic Yoruba right there. You get me? So you don't know. Beautiful. All right. I love soil. If you have time.
Yeah. There's a static in the background. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, my brother.
All right. Yeah. My question is very simple. I just want to know what are the blockades and procedures are needed for an American citizens to have a profitable agricultural business in Gambia or Ghana?
All right, I'm not sure
any African country that these our esteemed scholars belong to.
So, just repeat your question one more time, my brother.
All right. I want to know.
Bro, are you listening to the video at the same time as you're talking?
No, I think it's Shaz. Shaz. It's Shaz. Whoever Shaz.
It's Shakira. If you can
have to turn down her radio
yeah. Sister Shakira, if you can mute the video that you're watching, just mute the video on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've got headphones in.
Oh, okay. Because someone's got some. The
I'm not watching anything.
But it's Shaz. Whoever shot. That's where it's coming from. You can see the thing light up when the static.
It's gone now. It's gone now.
It's gone.
Okay. All right. Let me repeat my. Yeah. All right. I wanted to know the procedures and blockades for an American citizen to have a profitable agriculture business in Gambia or Nigeria. Or Ghana or any African country that these esteemed scholars belong to.
Thank you very much, my brother. Right, Sister Shakina, I'll start with you there. The brother wants to know about any procedures or blockades for starting an agricultural business in Gambia.
I don't think there are any blockages because it's something that that's our main resource in Gambia. We haven't got minerals like other places in Africa. You know, we grow a lot of peanuts and mangoes and cashews and things like that. So we are quite an agricultural nation. So as I said, you know, anybody could buy a plot of land, particularly if it's agricultural land, and start a garden and grow things. So it's not really an issue to do that here. Where you might find some other issues is when it comes to the exporting. there might be some issues there. But in terms of growing things, not a problem at all. And many people, they'll have their compound, but they'll have another plot of land where they'll have their garden, and that's something separate where they can make a living from either growing mangoes or cashews or moringa or whatever it might be. But they will have an extra garden that they could do to grow some stuff to make some money, depending on what's in the season.
I do believe you explained some of this before, sis, but the brother's asking about procedures as well. So if you could just give them a brief overview of what the procedure would be for purchasing land, and if there's a difference between commercial versus like living on the land, or, you know what I'm saying, them kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we've got different types. So we've got something called TDA, which is Tourist Development Area. That's when you buy a plot of land on the beach. And that plot of land is really about building a guest house or a hotel. It's not really for a residential house. And that's can be quite problematic. You have to really dot the I's and cross the T's when you're buying that type of land, because you have to make sure, you get the proper paperwork for having that land, and then to get the permission to build something that helps develop tourism. Mm-hmm. But moving aside from that, buying a normal piece of land just to build your house, it's fairly easy. Although now there is something going around, and I'm trying to verify it, but people give me different answers. Some are saying if you're non-Gambia, you cannot buy more than half an acre of land, right? As one piece. Some people say no, it doesn't matter. So I'm not sure what the real law is on that. Some people say it is written down in law. Some people say it's not enforced. So we're not sure. So what they're saying is that you can buy larger than 50 by 50 if you either start a company where the company entity is like a Gambian representing that land, or you can buy it with a Gambian, or you can buy it with two people. So let's say you had 100 by 100. So my name would go on 50 by 50 and your name would go on 50 by 50. And that's how you'd get around that.
Beautiful, yeah. Beautiful.
So there are ways you can get around things here, if you know the system, and of course if you grease a few palms.
Before you start, can you give me an estimation of the price range in US dollars or UK pounds for an acre, so I can estimate or extrapolate how much I would need for a decent agriculture operation?
Okay, I mean, it really depends where you're buying. Now, we have a couple of areas here that a lot of returnees are gravitating to, and it's an area called Sanyang and Gunjur. They're out in the country, beautiful, picturesque places in the countryside, and a lot of people are gravitating towards those areas. Now, those areas are going up in price quite a lot. So you might get, let's say 50 by 50, you might pay, let's say 400,000, which is probably about £5,000 for a piece of land. You can go bigger and pay up to, I mean, somebody came to me to buy a piece of land recently, and I think the land was worth about £10,000. Just this week, I helped a lady buy 4 pieces of land. 2 were on the beach and 2 were behind. And she paid in total £19,000 for 4 pieces of land. Those pieces are about a quarter of an acre because they're about 20 by 25. So let's say just under a quarter of an acre. But you could see, there's different prices depending on where you buy. I went upriver last year, bought a small plot of land, and it cost me £700. So it really does depend where you want to buy and the price, and the size. So it's the location and the size. But the thing is, land is going up a lot in Gambia now because everybody's coming to Gambia because it's small, it's peaceful, it's easy to navigate. If you want to come to Africa, but you think, where can I start? Gambia is a good place as a stepping stone.
100%.
Because, yeah, the economy is good. You're still getting 60 odd dollars to the pound, so your money can stretch quite a long way. As I said, it's peaceful, it's friendly. The crime is very low, so it's a very easy place to navigate. especially if you want to use it as a stepping stone to somewhere else.
Yeah, and one more thing, can you reiterate the three crops you named? You named moringa, peas, and something else.
Oh, we grow a lot of ground nuts, so that's our main agricultural thing that we grow. We have a lot of mangoes in the country.
Yeah, mango is it?
Yes, mangoes. Moringa, baobab, melons when the season is in. Oh my gosh, you just can't go around Gambia for melons. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy. In terms of agriculture, we do grow a lot, you know, cucumbers, tomatoes, lettuce, so many things we grow here. But we haven't got our processing and exporting down to a T yet. Now, look, mangoes, when it's mango season, where I live out in the countryside, mangoes are just dropping off the tree. There's so many mangoes. And cashews, where I live, there's a lot of cashews as well, because I live with around the Manjaco people, and their main industry is growing cashews. And, you know, with so many cashews, they're just dropping on the floor. Now, really, you know, you've got the fruit and you've got the nuts. And the fruit, you know, I juice it, I eat it, I do all kinds of things with it. But if we can find a way of processing these things, that we can have an export market from Gambia, made in Gambia, processed in Gambia, you know, the machines are in Gambia, that's Pan-Africanism, that we are in control of our own agriculture, our own food, our own exporting, our own importing, and then we'll have trade.
Okay, yeah. Before you go and Dr. Cambone takes over answer his question on the Ghana side of it. What's the problems with the exportation? Because you said that was kind of going to be a hindrance. So can you explain more on that part, the exportation of it, of the goods that you grow on the land?
Is that to me or to?
Yeah.
Dr. Obadele.
So you just
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think because we haven't got any processing plants. However, there is a Brazilian man here. And let me just give you the context. He has a mango and I think a tomato processing plant. Now, this man by himself is contributing 3% to the GDP of the country through his processing. And he sends those mangoes and tomatoes, etc., you know, to wherever he's sending them. He employs, I think he's up to maybe 3,000 people at the moment, last time I checked. But you see, this is one man who has a processing plant doing that. So what is stopping us from coming home and opening processing plants where we can grow orchards of cashews, mangoes, moringa, baobab, sorrel, or, you know, hibiscus, whatever you want to call it. What's stopping us from doing that and opening plants so that we too can export our goods? I'll give you one example. There's the supermarket Waitrose. They sell a brand called, I think it's Aduna. Now, if you look at the price of moringa, they might have, I don't know, 100-gram tin of moringa, and they might sell that for £8-9.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what I'm saying? Everybody else is coming here and they're making money from us, when really we should be controlling that and saying, okay, if you want to do A, B, C, and D, one, you'll pay a lot of tax in the country to go towards developing the country. You will employ our people, and there's only so much that can leave the country. We need to put stringent measures in place, not just allow people to have a free-for-all, make a lot of money, and don't bank the money here, but send the money back to their respective countries, because that's exactly what's happening.
Yes, yeah.
Because don't you find?
Right, one sec. I want to get Brother Obade to answer these questions.
Okay.
And I've given my brother, I do love soil. So I love soil a bit more leeway because he's asking some very specific questions that I'm sure all of our listeners would benefit from. So, Brother Obadele, same question to you. The first question was about procedures and/or blockades for developing agricultural business in Ghana.
Right. So you have different types of land here as well. You have stool land, that is to say, the traditional ruler sit on a stool, so that means it's owned by for lack of a better word, a royal family. You have family land, and then you have government land. And sometimes there's an overlap, especially if the one family is also the family that's on a stool. Now, as I was installed at Ekwapia Mampong, along with that comes access to land. So we have me personally, and then the family that I was adopted into, I have access to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of land, and it's right there for anyone who is interested in doing major agricultural work. So right now, it's for the most part laying fallow, and then there are just a few settlements in there, like, you know, maybe about 5 houses here, 10 houses there. But when I was first being installed, the Bamohene, that's Nana Sechi Adipo, he asked me, you know, am I interested in doing something like a moringa farm or a mango farm or anything of that nature? Now, what this is this family land, and essentially they're interested in developing that land for agriculture. Now, I didn't have anyone who was interested in agriculture at that time, but since then I have a couple people who are interested in solar. That's also something that that family is interested in, that if you also wanted to do solar, that they would allow that land to be used for that as well. So essentially, and that's because that's family land. So when it's family land, it's up to the discretion in terms of how it's used. Now, the land that I purchased it outright. Now, the way it's supposed to work is that if you're not a Ghanaian citizen, so forth and so on, you can only lease land, you can't have a conveyance, whatever. And that lease is supposed to be 49 years. Ghana, however, works in such a way that things happen the way that they happen. So for me, even though at that time I had US citizenship, I was able to get the land as freehold land. And of course, now I have Ghanaian citizenship. So, you know, the way that things work, you can get freehold land, especially if it's coming from a family. And just in the course of the discussions, like for me, I went there, I poured libation, I'm speaking, I'm doing all these things. So they're like, yo, this guy, he's down. And, you know, that led to that other people, they have different experiences. But really, the way the situation presents itself to you is very heavily dependent on how you present yourself to that situation. Are you coming saying, you know, all right, I'm an American and blah, blah, blah. Are you coming, I'm an African, I'm repatriating? So essentially, the way that you're received is very much tied to how you approach that situation. So in terms of just directly answering, that there aren't barriers per se, that if you are coming and you're interested in investing, then just let me know and I can put you in touch with those who have the land, access to the land, and what you would need in order to make that happen.
Do you have any price ranges to offer, brother? Any price ranges for land?
For that one, is if you are coming to use the land, then you would be able to use it without paying. It's just because it's something that would develop the society. Now, there are other, matter of fact, I took a brother to see 15 acres there. And for that, you can look at somewhere around 5,000 Ghana cedis per plot. And that's somewhere around $1,000 per plot. And that's a little bit out away from the town. Where my land is now, that I mentioned when I first got it, it was 3,500 Ghana cedis. Now that land, people are starting to build there. So now that's gone from 3,500 to 15,000 Ghana cedis per plot. And that's the way it works, that if you're willing to get it when it doesn't look like much, then by the time it starts to look like much, that land will, you know, appreciate in value exponentially. But again, if people are serious and they're interested in more details, you can contact me directly, repatriate.ghana.com. This is what I do in facilitating those who are interested in making land deals and other deals of that sort.
Well, definitely we're going to be talking. I got experience. I worked with the U.S. Department of Agriculture before. I had got scholarship from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to study agriculture in the United States. So we're definitely going to talk. I'm all about sustainable agriculture, and I do love the land. I know how you said libations. I treat the land like it's my own body. So I understand what you're saying. So definitely we're going to talk in the future.
Family, I am totally enjoying this conversation as though I'm just a spectator. You know what I mean? You know, just taking it in. Thank you, my brother. I do love sir. I see you in the chat quite regularly, my brother. So I didn't even know that you was from the States still. so you know what I mean? We're international out here. It's been a beautiful international call. I see my brother I'm gonna come back to you, brother Terry. Yes, so don't hold tight. But my brother E Black is on the call as well. So I also want to give him an opportunity to have a word, my brother. Go ahead, my brother. Brother E, you never out? E Black disappeared.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go on.
Yeah. My bad. I'm just getting into mute. Yeah, man, I'm just enjoying the conversation. You know, the ones there. I think it's really cool to what the brother was saying about the different types of land, and also the sister in terms of citizenship and being able to acquire land on freehold, because that leasehold situation is not a good thing long term, right? But yeah, man, I'm just soaking in the conversation, man. It's pertinent information.
Yes, sir. Yes. Terry, yeah, something that you wanted to say.
Say again.
No, Terry has something that he wanted to say, but it looked like him gone.
No, I'm not gone. I'm not gone yet.
Yeah,
Nah, it's just I'm just building upon that, because, as I said to you, the reason why I mentioned the Queen of Republic of Congo is that we're moving in a form of a Pan-African movement, and that even when the sister was talking about the Brazilian guy, I just come back from Brazil, and the two things she mentioned is what's in demand in Brazil. So when you're even looking at things like the cashew nut and you're looking at the fruit, they are the fruit juice itself is in a massive demand, because they have a thing what they call soca, and the soca is having fresh fruit and they put sugar in it, and they love their juice.
It's not music, Terry.
Huh?
When they say soca, it's not music they were talking about.
No, it's not music. It's called fruit juice.
Right, cool.
Yeah, so no, but in its perspective, as I said, I work in places where we do import and exporting, and what I've realized that the market itself, if you're into forms of trying to get things out, Gambia is one of the best places to get in things out of. So what we do is that we transportate things from Ghana, Nigeria into Gambia, and from Gambia we take it out into Europe, which makes it much more easier than if I took it out of Nigeria and put it straight to the UK, where we get heavily taxed. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So in like, this is how we even import and export shea butter, and we get tons of it we send it into Gambia, because Gambia, one thing I've kind of noticed is that they tend to import quite a lot of stuff than to grow it themselves.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
Well, on that subject, Sister Shakina and Brother Obadele, because you're both in West Africa, and one of the things that has been spoken about from ever since there was a term Pan-Africanism, really, was the relaxation or abolishment of the borders. Yeah. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen right now, but to what extent, from your experience, is West Africa communicating with each other, the various nations developing political, economic, or cultural relationship to facilitate certain kinds of trade among the West African nations?
Now, I mean, in terms of West Africa, we have the ECOWAS,
yes,
which is, the passport and the almost like our CARICOM in the Caribbean. However, I'm not convinced that we are working together. We still love these borders that were created for us, instead of breaking those down. So, if there's any problems, the ECOWAS soldiers will come in. They're still here since the 2016 elections. They are still here on the street, mainly from Nigeria and Ghana. So, they'll support each other like that. But in terms of trade, proper trade, I don't see enough of that going on. And I think it's because we're still very precious about these borders that were created for us. And this is why I say that, you know, our leaders have to do better by us. For me, I don't recognize the 52 countries in Africa because we are bigger than that. We had empires. We didn't have little countries. We are much bigger than that. And I think when we get back to that, our self-sufficiency will be a lot better. Because, you know, if you look at things like the Mali and the Songhai Empire, how wide that spread, just look at the trade we could be doing with each other, which makes us stronger. It means other people can't come in and take over a little small nation. So, you know, someone like Gambia, you know, if you see the amount of people that have come here to make business. Now, if we were doing trade with other people, they wouldn't be able to do that. We'd be able to say to them, excuse me, where are you going? Yeah, but because we're not in control of our borders and our trade, it's very difficult. I mean, even just for me to go over to Senegal, you know, fingerprinting, yellow fever card, all kind of nonsense. Senegambia is one place. I should be able to just walk across that border. Yeah, so we're making it more difficult for ourselves.
All right.
I would say that in order to achieve a brighter future in Africa, we would literally have to create something new. Because some of the Pan-Africanist ideas that we think of, I don't personally believe were inherently in Africa. Like, for instance, this idea that we should unite as a people within that continent and have freedom of borders. I don't think that really existed hundreds of years ago. I think people were very proud of their tribes and had their own things. Like, you had the walls of Benin, they literally had a wall around their own kingdom. So, I mean, we're talking about no longer having borders, which is a great idea, but I think it's a new thing that we would have to create for the future. We can't keep looking to the past. I think we have to create a new idea, and I think we're already doing that with the way we look at Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism has become fluid, and it is changing in the 21st century from what it was in the 20th century. So,
but witness, just on the one occasion though, in the walls of Benin, you got to still understand they still negotiated with Igbo people because they took control of Lagos. So when you see Lagos wasn't just one part Yoruba, one part this. The Benin would let the Igbos have a control over it. That's why you had different types of kingdoms within Lagos itself. So the borders wasn't really there. The kingdom was just protecting itself from enemies. But other than that, it was opened. That's why the British could able to come in and infiltrate.
If I can just share something really quickly. When I was in Ethiopia, I was at a conference on IT and teaching of African languages. And when I was there, I met a brother from Sudan. And he said, yeah, I'm from Sudan, but my people have been here for about 100 years. Before that, it was, we came from Nigeria, northern Nigeria. Now, my ancestors decided to go to Mecca on a pilgrimage. And on the way back, they just decided that they're going to stop in Sudan. There's a community here in Ghana called Kanda and Nima. And I know Yoruba speakers who have been in that area for over 150 years. They still speak Yoruba, they still eat moi moi, but they just move. If you look at the early 1900s, there's this documentation of the people of Congo who said that they used to be at a place called Kainga. Now, if you look on Google Maps, Kainga is in what's now modern day Chad. So they're talking about the ancient Bantu migration that they left because it started to be more desert-like. And that's how they came to what's now the Congo River. And this is thousands of years ago. So I think when we're talking about history, we have to put things in context to what point in history are we talking about? Because the point in history that we're talking about, the walls and all this, is a point where the Eurasians are already at our doors. There's already raiding of one people against another people. There's gun in exchange for the enslaved enemies of those people. And it's that lack of understanding that we're all Black people and we have common white enemies. So we have to just look at that in context of, all right, you know, the walls since when, at what point in time? That one is the more recent phenomenon because we weren't always in that way.
All right. Bro, Sister Shakira, right? I was gonna look the conversation. I was gonna try to end the conversation in about 5 minutes here, but my brother Scattered has just jumped in the conversation. So the 5-minute team now go work. But I do want to.
No, you can do 5. I was late. I'm sorry, I late to the party.
It's cool, don't worry. I have to give deference to brothers that scattered. You know what I mean? So it's bliss. But I just wanted to check how long do we have with brother Obadeli and sister Shakina. Don't feel obliged to stay any longer than you can.
No, I'm enjoying this conversation, so don't put any time limits on me.
You don't want to tell me that, sis. Yeah, it will be. Yeah. How long you got, brother Obadeli?
Well, I'm cool. My son is on my lap trying to fall asleep, so I think I'm pretty much stuck in one spot. So I'm cool.
Situated. I know how that goes, bro. I got a 9-month-old now. And on that subject, bro, we're gonna be. I'm just sorting out a couple of bills differently. But because we wanted to be raised speaking tree, so we're gonna be purchasing your 101 course soon, so that we can make ourselves fluent. You know what I'm saying, within the next year or two, so that when he just grows up hearing tree in the house, and being able to learn it naturally. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that we're trying to do for my son at the moment.
That's black-tastic. As you know, I don't speak to my children in any white languages. We only speak African languages. I've never spoken a single word to any of my children in any white languages. So that's the rule of the household.
Wow.
Excellent. That's excellent.
This might sound like a stupid question, but what happens when your kids want to go on holiday to America or England?
You know, actually, my wife has gone back, and she's gone back to visit our family. Now, she doesn't have that rule, so she speaks to them to some degree in Yoruba, because I really am on her every single time she speaks to them in any white language, but they speak English better than most English speakers, you understand? So, my daughter, she does her research work. If you look at amakamban.com, AMAKAMBON.com, you'll see research projects that she's written in Twi, in Yoruba, in Wolof, in Medu-Neter, and then also in English. She has it lined up by different subjects. So, they do all of those. But for me, I said, nope, that's my role. We only speak in African languages. And we do all the different subjects in, African languages as well. So you can see some of those videos online. We're doing algebra in Yoruba. We're doing, probability using 5 divination chains, all those types of things.
Yeah. And
do you find it? Sorry.
So just a quick thing. I'm just to say that I'm gonna facilitate another conversation with Brother Obadeli on exactly what he just spoke about in terms of teaching science, maths, and them kind of things. Their technology in African languages. It's an essential aspect of our development. But yeah, go ahead, witness, and then I'm gonna come to Scattered.
Thank you very much. I learned something about a year ago. I got into a big argument with an American, Black American, and he said something interesting which I never thought about in regards to the Yoruba language, learning it. It is written in English letters. So when you actually learn how to write it, you're writing it down in English letters, not actually African. And the person said that was kind of a sellout thing to do. And it never occurred to me for years till I had that debate or argument with him. It is written in English letters. So I thought, is it possible to learn an African language without using English letters from a Pan-Africanist point of view?
Interesting question right there.
This is really a great question. Now, earlier today, I've taught a course called Intro to African Languages. And as part of Intro to African Languages, I actually showed them that, one, there's no such thing as English letters. So the English people have never developed a writing system, and we're still here in so-called 2019 waiting for them to develop their writing system. And I actually showed them a graphic that I actually grew up with on the inside cover of the dictionary. It showed this, that the Latin script is what English is written in. Now the Latins developed their script from the Greek script, and the Greek script is directly derived from Medu-Neter. So these white people who we associate writing with, to date, they have still not developed a writing system. And I'm gonna put that here in the chat so you can see the exact same chart that I showed to the students. So that's one. And then two, we have various scripts and various means of writing throughout the continent. And that's another thing that we covered. So not only Medu-Neter, we also have Meroitic, we have Ge'ez, we have Nsibidi, we have Mende script, we have Vai, Inko, and so forth and so on. So all of these are writing systems. So when I was doing my survival training, we had to do, and this is in the US, we had to do our manual, basically like a diary of what went on with us each day. And what I decided to do is write my diary in Chi, but using Medunecha, right? Because the idea, if we're talking about security, one, this means that whoever is trying to decipher what I've written down, they would have to, one, know Chi, and then they would have to understand the Medunecha words that I was writing it down in. So when I gave my report, I gave the report early, just reading through what I had written in Chi, using Medunecha letters. So these are options. We can also write in our own systems, in our own writing systems, but to do that, that means that you have to take the step to actually learn that writing system.
Yeah. You know what, brother Obadele, you have a homeschoolers thing going on as well, right?
Say it again.
You have a homeschooling system going on there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so we homeschool our children, and we have a network of various people who homeschool their children. You can check out that site, Abibi Fahundia Disbiabia, and that translates to African Liberation School in the Chi language. So, you know, with that, that's what we do, is that we expose the children to things that they would not get otherwise, such as this type of information. So when I'm showing them that these white people who they associate, and I just posted that image here in the chat as well, that the white people who we associate writing with have still not developed a writing system, the students are mind blown. And I'm like, don't you think you would do better at writing if you knew that your ancestors invented writing? And not only that, that the white people who we associate writing with have still not invented a writing system to date yet. That is just, you know, it really lets us know how upside down, inside out, and backwards we are in terms of our understanding.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm like, the more I'm hearing is that the more my repatriation agenda is kind of fast tracking, because that's the kind of school I want my son to go to.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Man learn 5 different African languages just through his education. That's madness. But yeah, Scattered, my brother Tahaka.
Oh, brother, how you doing?
Yeah, I see your political comments in the chat still. Respect, you know what I mean? You don't know. That's okay. You know what I mean? I'm seeing it. No, big up, Sister Kushti. You don't know. I see you, sis. But yeah, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, man. You know me, man. Whenever I get my chance.
It's all good, bro. It's all good. It's all good.
Good love song, I love all the other empires too, Mali and Ghana and do everything, man. You gotta love all the empires. I have to say, big respect to everybody on your panel once again. It's been an amazing show. A lot of learning, a lot of respect. I have to say, obviously, Tendai Mare, Africa, for the African Spiritualist panel. And I also have to say, martial law for myself to protect myself from jealousy, because goodness, Dr. Abadeli and Sister Shakina are living the dream right now. Like, I heard the brother talking about up in mountains, looking down on clouds, clear oxygen. I'm just like, sorry. And also speaks 5 languages, and all of them African. I'm like, yeah, like I'm trying to keep the jealousy back here, because you like. Everything is beautiful. Like, it's amazing to see. And obviously last week on my show we had the discussion, Shakara, about reparations, and I came from the perspective of that it's a very difficult thing to do, and we should be thinking about building up first and then returning back. To the brother and sister talking and having to have their experiences, I'm seeing that there's definitely a clear pathway that it's actually a lot easier than I thought for a lot of people to go back. At the same time, I think brother and sister have highlighted a point that I suppose I was trying to make in terms of doing the groundwork and having the skill sets and knowing what you're going to be able to bring back to a country, not just going back with a sort of rose-tinted, back to the motherland idea, but actually understanding the role you're going to play in that motherland and what you can contribute and how you can affect the society around you to encourage continuous growth and promotion and a return to African-centeredness for the people on the continent who might have been moved away. I mean, I found it interesting that, the brother was talking about, they wanted to dress in a suit and stuff. He went back to Africa, but they wanted to dress in a suit and not necessarily in the cloth and so on. So I think, there's definitely a lot of work to be done in the terms of promoting that sort of African centeredness, even on the continent. So, so there's definitely a place for people like the brother and the sister to do that. And I definitely look forward to Repatriate. I'm like Sister Shakina, I'm definitely not looking to retire here in England at all. So definitely looking at options and places around the motherland where I can return to, and the sooner the better. But yeah, I think as a community, yeah, it's definitely something like we need to think about doing as a group, I suppose, as well as set up networks for people who might not even necessarily want to return back. How can we now start trading directly with the brothers and sisters that we know who have gone back to Africa across the diaspora, so we can create a big network and take advantage of all the different places where we are. But yeah, I mean, I want to say respect to everybody, man. Love.
Give thanks for that contribution, Scatter, and you kind of preempted my next question, which I'll put it to Shakina and Brother Obadele first, but then I'll open it to the rest of everybody wants to answer. But just in terms of, there are many Africans who are not necessarily going to move right now or anytime in the next 5-10 years, but want to establish consistent and meaningful relationships, and so in the sense that the Africans on the ground, be they continental in terms of by birth or diasporan returnees, obviously need to be establishing, methods and institutions and frameworks for Africans who are in the diaspora to connect, invest, help to build, trade, whatever it is with the continent. So what are the avenues that you both see for that kind of relationship? Do you know what I'm saying? So even when Africans are not necessarily moving back in their hundreds or thousands, the consistent relationship and connection that is being maintained across the waters.
Okay, you know what I always say? If you do nothing else, just buy a piece of land in Africa.
Right.
Because for every piece of land that we buy, we're taking ownership back from somebody else. But if we leave those lands available, other people will come in, buy up the land, and they are buying up a lot of land. When I'm talking about other people.
Yeah, man,
and our people are not coming to do that. So even if I had the back and forth for 12 years, but I kept that connection. Every holiday I got from work, I was on the plane to Gambia, building up my network, learning things that I needed to learn, picking up bits of the language, traveling on bush taxis and gilly so I can hear people talking, so I can learn a bit of the language, etc. And just keeping that connection going, and going to see my land, again, pouring libation, all sorts of things, because it's about that connection. When we come home, we are returning back to a place that our ancestors probably didn't believe they would return back to. When those ships were leaving those shores and they saw the African shore disappearing, and when they, landed somewhere, they never thought they would return. But it's possible that we can return and bring them with us. So it's really important. And I'm not saying everybody has to leave at once, but, that place that we've lived in, the incubator, as Dr. Henrik Clark calls it, it's not good for us. It's toxic. People are stressed. People are losing their mind, physically, mentally, spiritually. That place is not good for us. It really isn't. So I would say to people, even if you just come once a year to reconnect, get some of that vitamin D in you, eat some fresh food, see people that look like you, you've got to do that, even if it's once a year, because then when you go back, you're in a stronger position to deal with the madness that's there. And I mean, I got to a point where I just couldn't stand the UK anymore. I really couldn't. I just hated it, absolutely hated it. But, and when I, sold my house and packed up and everything, when I bought my one-way ticket, I tell you, I can't even describe that feeling I had when I knew that was it. A one-way ticket wasn't coming back. Yeah.
What's it called? Luciano have a true one-way ticket,
Yes.
I remember the tune there. Give me a one-way ticket.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so it does make a difference. And I think, our people, if they can take small steps, there's many of us here to help them. We're not going to let them come and get nyam in any way. So they come, they can enjoy, what they need to enjoy in Africa. But then think, when you get to 50, 60, 70 years old, where do you want to be? Yeah, arthritis, stroke, all kind of something's going on in the UK. But we can reverse those things here. We can come and have a more holistic lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle. And, our people need to step out in faith, really. I know that CNN and BBC are trying to tell them, you know, Africa's this, Africa's that. But I would say come and see for yourself and come with an open mind. Come with an open mind. You have to. You're not going to find Tesco and EastEnders here, but you're going to find so much more better.
Beautiful. Brother Witness, check the back chat, yeah, because there's some stuff there that I think you might be interested in. So check the back chat, Brother Witness, all right?
Thank you, brother.
Make your own EastEnders and thing over there and Tesco's, man.
Yeah, that was it. Brother Obadele, you wanna respond to that?
Yeah, so just in terms of generally speaking, I would also, you know, I have an initiative that we're doing through our Bibitumi, and it's actually a brother who is based in Namibia who mentioned that what they do is that they have a group where they come together, they cook food, they eat together, they grow food together, they read together, so forth and so on. And there's not an organization, they don't have a name, they're just being African, right? You know, they do a ritual, you know, they learn Medu Netre together, they do Bois Caiman out of Haiti, you know, the ritual that set off the revolution. So I found that to be very inspiring. So essentially building community there. And the idea was building community no matter where we are. So we're looking at doing similar things here in Ghana, just beyond the lecture model, but to establishing communities and interrelating with more authentic relationships. Yeah. So what we've done through our Bibitumi is that we've set up a model where we come together, you know, not too different from what we're doing right now, but Africans in various places of the world, we come together and we discuss the same books we're reading together. We set up our houses in similar ways. Where's your red, black, and green flag? Where's your altar to the ancestors? And essentially it's about mutual accountability. So for those who are not looking to repatriate, so one thing is I always encourage people to divest from financing our cave beast Neanderthal enemies. But for those who are not able to do that, I recommend that they divest as much as possible. So one way of divesting is, you know, by growing your own food, doing this, that, and the third, until you can divest on a greater level, which is by, and, you know, I put it like this, anytime an African repatriate, it's like robbing the white bank of $1 million, because all of that money that you would have been spending over 10 years, 20 years, you know, is not going to be spent there in, you know, Whiteyville. It's going to be spent here in Africa. So that car you would have bought, that mortgage you would have paid, you know, that food you would have eaten, that water you would have drank, all those in the entertainment concerts, instead of going to finance your enemy, is staying here and circulating in Africa. So I would always encourage people, until you can divest at a higher level, try to divest on smaller levels through what you wear, through what you eat. The sister Shakara mentioned being vegan. I've been vegan since 9 months before I was born. So, you know, we can come together on the food that we grow, eating together, all these types of things. And, you know, I think that that's really the way forward. And, you know, I was talking to the brother out in Namibia the other day, and I was saying, I really don't see a way forward in terms of what I call weekend Africans, right? So I use my African name on Saturday and Sunday at the festival or at Kwanzaa or whatever, but all the other days of the week, you know, I'm Harry McGillicuddy or whatever. So if we're working for our enemies 5 and 6 days a week, and then I devote 1 day of the week, a couple hours out of 1 day of the week to now work for African liberation, that's not the way to win. It's like 1 step forward and then 6 steps backwards. That's not going to get us towards victory in African liberation. So we have to do better. And one way that we can do better is through repatriation. And until we can get that, we can, you know, downsize, as my father says it, and, you know, work on supporting African people more.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, I want to ask though, yeah. So in recent years, there's been the Gambia Roots Homecoming Festival, and this year is the year of return, yeah, in Ghana. I want to ask about the relevance of these festivals to Gambia and Ghana respectively, and the diaspora in general. Like what do these festivals and this year of return, what does it represent? What opportunities are being opened through Roots Homecoming and Ghana Year of Return? Is it more hype than it's worth in terms of the substance that comes with it, or are there genuine things and opportunities and avenues open to us through these things?
Okay, so in terms of the Gambia Roots Homecoming Festival, has been running since the late 90s, and it's really about the connection, because remember here we say that Kunta Kinte came from Gambia, from the village of Jufure. So we're celebrating all that, but sometimes I have to ask the question, okay, so we know about Kunta Kinte and Jufure and all these places, but yet when we come home, we're still having to fight for citizenship. So there's a bit of a misnomer, really, that, we're celebrating it on one hand, our connective roots to our ancestors and those that were taken away, etc. But still, when we come home, we're still having to prove who we are. So that's quite confusing to me at times, really, that, we're still having to do that, when really, as soon as we get here, my dad was saying to me when he saw that video, the second video, he said, "Why are you fighting for citizenship?" I said, "But Dad, what you don't understand is that, the mind here is still colonized. It's not as free and as open as we think it should be, because, the colonizers are still here doing their work here in Africa on the continent. So when we come home, we're still not really recognized. We still have to be telling people that, yes, we're from the Caribbean or wherever, but those were just places that we were dropped off. That's not where we're from. I mean, sometimes I'll get things like, you want to be African? No, I don't want to be, I am.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's that kind of narrative and conversation that we have to have with our people sometimes, because they still don't get it. And even when, Gambia entertains a lot of reggae artists, so Luciano, Morgan Heritage, Chronix was here the other day, Luton Fire was here, Beanie Man, a lot of Jamaican artists come.
Spice was in the house.
Oh Lord, yes, she was. I'm a bit old-fashioned like that. I don't know if I want our young people to see those things.
I've got a love-hate relationship with Spice. I'm not
okay.
I have a love-hate relationship with Spice. She's very talented. Spice. But she's very talented. But the subject matter at certain times leaves a lot to be desired.
Yes,
but I do appreciate the talent. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the Black Beauty.
Yes. And then we've got Christopher Martin coming next month.
Okay.
He's coming too. So, there's that connection, especially with Jamaica here. But still, I'm not quite sure that I think the people, some of the people recognize who we are and are quite happy that, we are coming home and we're doing things. But it's the higher echelons, the governments, who are not, really stepping out and saying, look, our people are coming. What are we going to do for them? How are we encouraging our people to come? And I think our governments have failed us by not really reaching out and saying to the diaspora, you need to come. I know Ghana's doing something, and not to tread on your toes, Dr. Obadali. For me, yes, it's good to say, right of return, year of return, right of abode. But really, I haven't heard anything about offering citizenship.
Right.
So to me, they've fallen short still. They've fallen short. So I'm saying to Gambia, with this movement we've got here, if you can be the first in West Africa, everybody else will follow you.
Yes.
So let's set the trend. Let's set the trend of, this fast track citizenship, and then everybody else will follow and say, look, okay, our people are coming home. Let's do something for them. Because what they don't realize that we are coming with a vast amount of skills. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we were taken away, but it's worked in our advantage as well, because Dr. Obadali's got a PhD, I've got a master's and a law degree, other people are coming with other things. We can use these skills to build Africa up. And remember, Africa was always the hub of education. It's not something, I don't give the white man credit for what he doesn't do. We were the ones that had education. So there's nothing wrong with educating ourselves, but it's what we do with it.
Can I jump in there, Shaka? I just want to ask a question.
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, I just want to ask you if that is a lot of what I was saying actually last week in the conversation was having. I agree with that a lot in terms of the idea of that we're not necessarily getting offered citizenship and some of these things are things we have to think about before we try and get right of return. But is there, can I ask, a concerted effort possibly like in Gambia? Because I heard what you're saying there, like where you're pushing towards the government that if they're the first, other countries will follow. Is there like a concerted lobbying effort towards the government from repatriates and like other returnees and from maybe even the people themselves of the country to say, yeah, like this is a law that we need to change? Is there an effort to do that, or to lobby, or to try and get political support for that, or is it?
Right. Well, as I said earlier, I'm working with closely with one of the opposition parties who subscribe to Pan-Africanism. So the second video, when I went away with them for the weekend, that was my opportunity to speak to the Congress to say, look, if you have any motions, please add one of our motions, which they have. So they have a motion now in their party about repatriates and what they can do with them, working with them. So that's quite key that we have that support. In terms of the government, we're really trying to do that through the rewriting of the constitution that they're doing right now. So as I said, last November, I went and did a presentation, submitted some evidence, and they said, you know, when I spoke to them the other day to say, you know, where are you now? They've collected all the evidence now. They're going through it with a fine-tooth comb. And then when they make the first draft, then, you know, that will be seen by the Assembly House for them to make some decisions in terms of what's in that draft constitution. But before that happens, my plan is to go to the Assembly House and have an audience with them to say, look, this is going to be coming. I want to get an idea of how you're going to vote towards that. What's your thoughts on us coming home, offering us citizenship in a fast-tracked way, and how we're going to deal with things like dual citizenship as well.
Yeah, that's good. Like, that's definitely
all right. Beautiful, brother Obadeli. You want to address Ghana year of return?
Yeah, I actually gave a talk on this year of return. One, I dealt with this idea of 400 years, this 1619, and how that is a massive fraud because you had Africans being enslaved in 1445 by the Portuguese of Cape Verde. You had African revolutions in the early 1500s, 1526. You had the rebellion in Spanish Florida, 1570. Gaspar Yanga, 1603. You had Palenque in Colombia. 1605, you had Palmares in Brazil. So you had all these Africans, over 500,000 Africans enslaved before 1619, including some who were in Spanish Florida, which is now part of the United States. But because that wasn't a British colony, they say 400 years. And then they link it to this whole biblical thing. And I gave a talk this past Thursday on what was Israel in relation to Black people, according to primary source text from Kemet and elsewhere. So that's one. And just in terms of the citizenship, on 6 March, which is Ghana's Independence Day, the president was quoted as saying several diasporans of African descent, and it should be a few hundred, who have lived with us for many years, will, as part of the year of return, receive the long-awaited Ghanaian citizenship. And this was really the statement that all of us have been waiting on, because everything else, they're talking about year of return, not year of repatriation. That's an entirely different thing. So in the talk that I gave, actually really went in on the president and all of these folks that, all right, you're talking about return. Is it what? Return to be an ATM, or is it return to actually, you know, have citizenship in the spirit of reciprocity? So, you know, I'd like to think that my talk and those of others who are constantly on the government, constantly agitating, you know, has hit some ears. And, you know, there are lots of people who are on the ground. Dr. Maulana, who was the main person who was fighting to get us that first citizenship. I also assisted with that. You know, several other groups.
When you say Dr. Maulana, you mean Dr. Maulana Karenga?
Dr. Maulana Karenga is nowhere near Ghana. There's another brother named Dr. Maulana who lives here and has been here since the 80s. So it's an entirely different person. Dr. Hamid Maulana is based here in Ghana and has Ghanaian citizenship.
Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so no problem. So yeah, so Ghana was, you know, the first one to do it, you know, on at least group scale, to say that, and you know, this is what the president Muhammad said. He said he's not giving us anything. He's restoring what's our natural birthright. So that was the first 34. And right now we have 2 lists with several hundred people on them. And if the Ghana government actually makes good on its word, and I like to keep a skeptic realism on this because we know who we're dealing with.
Yeah.
People who have been trained their entire lives to be anti-Black, anti-Africans. They worship imaginary white people. They want to make a national cathedral, all these things. So, we keep a skeptic realism, but this has been the first statement that they said, yeah, this year of return is going to converge with what we've been talking about, which is citizenship. Okay. So, we'll see if it's Gambia, beautiful. But, at the end of the day, all of these are imaginary neo-colonial fragments that were cooked up at the Berlin Conference.
Yeah.
So I also posted a link to this African Union passport unveiled this year. And I think that, one thing, I have a Ghana passport that should, under what I've been reading, entitle me to the AU passport.
Yes.
So I'm traveling to Togo, I'm traveling to Benin. I could do that visa-free with my Ghana passport, but there are other countries that I can't go to visa-free. But, ultimately, this AU passport, if it works out to be what we're hearing about, will be, I think a step towards being able to move, within Africa and beyond. Because if we're talking about Black people, regardless of location, we need to have, we think about these Arabs who are on stolen territory in North Africa, that they still have their Arab League because they know who they are, right? But where's our Black League? So I should have a passport that enables me to travel to all the countries, including those occupied territories occupied by those Arabs, but then also to a place like Haiti. There are more Black people in Brazil than there are in Ghana. So, what's really going on? I should be able to travel to Jamaica, to Mekamui, what they call Bougainville in the Pacific Islands. I should be able to travel to West Papua New Guinea, because that's what real Pan-Africanism is all about. Black people, regardless of location, instead of location, regardless of whether or not you're Black.
Well, I mean, I know it's been popping off over there, brother, recently, the last couple of months, really, in terms of the Ghana year of return. Have you been to any of the official? Well, you just said you spoke out something the other day, but there's been a lot of I heard Muta Baruka was performing out there. That was a big thing. What's the energy out there? Let's give our people a sense of the energy out there.
Yeah, so Muta Baruka, he actually interviewed me when he was here, and I was part of African Cultural and Wellness Festival, which is organized by Dr. Sharita Yazid, and she has that as one of the events that is, associated with this year of return. And I've been, doing this. This is long before the year of return. This is like the 5th one that she's done, and I've been doing them. I teach capoeira there, which is an African combat science that we use to beat down all these Eurasians and even those Black people who choose to use those Eurasian arts, right? So let me see. I don't know if that, hold up, let me give you the link to that. But, on the talk, I also dealt with that exact same thing in terms of the year of return. So not the link that I just posted, this one here. Okay. You can check out that video. But when I go into the fraud of this 400 years, that's longer than 400 years. But then also just, going into what are we really talking about when we say year of return? And is that, consonant with repatriation? Is that dealing with being able to, not only return, but stay and not just be an ATM? All right, we set you dry, now go back to where you came from. So, dealing with some of those hard questions with Muta Baruka, and that was one of the year of return things, and several other things. Basically, it's people who are doing their own events. Then they send it to the government, and the government puts it on their website to say, oh, this is a year of return event.
Okay.
So that's the way it works. But then, the government is going to do their own thing a little bit later on. I think Panafest and other things are going to be on that docket as well in terms of year of return event.
Okay. Big up, Sister Ife in the chat. I see you, sis. You know what I mean? Sister of Brother Scattered.
Hey, Shakara, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
No, because, as you know, I went to Brazil, and I went to Brazil for 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And what you're going to find is now the kingdoms, which are as I always call the kingdoms, are the families that are the true owners of the land.
Yes, yes, yes.
And what you'll find is that the Queen of Republic of Congo has been touring as much as possible into the African diaspora.
Yes, yes.
And like, for instance, the experience that we've got within Brazil is that nearly every other spiritual house, from Salvador Bahia to Rio to Sao Paulo and few others, which they began to start to crown her. And as they're crowning her, she's giving them chieftaincy title. The greatest link that she has is that the government of Congo, the new president, is her cousin.
Yeah.
So now what's happening is that she's going to people, you can stay where you are, or you can come back and let's develop my land. And and even in the greatest terms, she's working as a diplomatic person for all the other kingdoms. So like, for instance, she's been offered a whole massive land in Benin from the King of Benin, which, as I said to you, in like what we're doing over here with the Manhood Academy, is what I'm trying to do is implement the rites of passage within each of these communities. In that perspective, so that when the child comes out from the UK and finishes his Manhood Academy, he's able to experience his rites of passage with the kingdom and what we will call the Babalawos.
Powerful. So what are you saying, like there's gonna be land in Congo waiting for us, yeah?
Yep, 100%. Because but between this year and next year, we're going to launch a worldwide rites of passage for men.
Well, do you know what? We got to talk, because I'd love to speak to the Queen.
Anytime you're ready.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Does she speak the Anglais, or do we need to get a translator?
Yeah, she speaks 4 or 5 different languages. Spanish, beautiful, Portuguese, English, French, you name it. She speaks it.
Brother Obalele, on that point, yeah, I'm going to ask you a controversial question, bro. It's not really controversial. It's only going to be controversial because I'm speaking to you. But because I'm obviously, as I said to you, I'm trying to learn tree. I started learning tree years ago. I was in a relationship, and the relationship ended, and the lessons ended with the relationship. So we haven't got back on track yet. But at the moment though, as well as tree, I'm trying to learn French, mostly because I'm connecting with brothers and sisters who are organizers, who are in France, but they're also from the continent, and have links to the continent. As you know, a significant amount of the continent speaks French, Now, colonial language, we know, but unfortunately, because of that fact, it has practical use, as in our present reality, communication purposes. For example, you've been to Benin. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Brother Kemi Seba. Say again.
Say it again. Familiar with the work?
You've been to Benin, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work of Brother Kemi Seba.
Is that the Songhai?
No. Kemi Seba is a brother that's been campaigning against the French currency.
No, I'm not familiar with this work.
Okay, all right, you have to get familiar still. But yeah, so what do you think of in terms of repatriating, learning one of the practicality of learning, as well as an African language, one of the colonial languages for the sake of communication?
Yeah, so for me, I would always recommend that you learn an African language. So when I was in Senegal and Gambia, my thing was, all right, I could either spend my time learning French, or I could spend my time learning Wolof. So for me, anticipating going to that country, I decided to learn Wolof. Okay. You understand? So there are people, and ultimately it's up to you to make your decision. So if you have your eye on a specific country, on specific places, then you can say, all right, I know that I want to go to this French-speaking place, but let me try to learn the indigenous languages. That will be my recommendation, and I think that you'll have a vastly different experience if you do that.
Definitely.
Of course, people who want to learn French will be learning French. People who want to learn English or Portuguese or whatever will be doing whatever it is that you want to do. But my recommendation is learn an African language and learn several African languages. So the way I've lived my life gives me the right to say you can learn various African languages and master them to the point that you can teach native speakers that language.
Yes.
Because again, in neo-colonial Africa, and you know, when you put Brother Terry on, you said you were quizzing me. I was actually quizzing him because I was like, just because you're ethnically Yoruba doesn't mean that you speak Yoruba and you understand Yoruba. Now he said, yeah, I speak Yoruba, and I was like, okay, that's cool. So you were like, you're putting me on to have him quiz me. I'm quizzing him.
Yeah, most there.
Because
I was being cheeky, brother.
Most people, or let me not say most people, a lot of people don't speak their own indigenous language well. So if you start to ask them philosophical questions in their African language about the origin of creation, then they are lost. If you want to have a conversation without them putting at least 5 English words in it, then they are lost. They cannot do it. So, you know, we have to separate, you know, being, and this is the thing. So in undergrad, I studied something called so-called African American Studies. And you have all these people who are in there. This is at Morehouse College. You have all these people who are in there who are like, oh, I'm ethnically African American, so that must mean I magically know who Hiram R. Rebels is, or who P.B. Pinchback is, or like that magically means that I've read Blake by Martin Delaney, or that, you understand? That being ethnically whatever does not mean that automatically you've just soaked up everything, you know everything about what that is. So, you know, not to say that Brother Terry or anyone on the call, I would expect that if they're on this call, they must know their language. But just to let you know, that's the situation that we're in. So if you come to Africa and you meet people who are not proficient in their own language, don't be surprised, because that's the nature of the neo-colonial situation.
No, most definitely. I'm gonna find this video. I'll post it in the chat, Kings and Queens. But there's a video where Brother Obadele is translating technological objects, into the Tree language. But he's doing it. He's being interviewed on Ghana television by people that have been speaking Tree all their life, and he's, you know, creating these words. They ask him, how do you say microwave or cellular phone or microchip or in Tree? And he's giving them the answers. It's a mad thing, and it's you can learn a lot from just doing that. I'm looking more into this language thing, and I think one of the things that we kind of spoke about, me and my brothers who are living in France at the moment, is that you know, because they're trying to learn the English as well, and I'm trying to learn the France, but that's more because of our organizational program. But then we basically said, but together we have to learn Swahili, and that is the ultimate agenda. You know what I'm saying? Right. I did want to wrap up the chat in about 10 minutes, but we've got Kevin Lewis in the conversation, so you can feel free to contribute, my brother. By the way, having said that, if there's any further feminine energy that wants to join the conversation, you know what I mean, I'll make an allowance for that. Like if there's a sister out there who wants to jump on and say something, ask a question or make a comment, I'll allow for that. But other than that, other than, you know, a beautiful African sister, can we make Brother Kevin the last addition to the chat? Go ahead, Brother Kevin.
Brother Shakara, it sounds like you're trying to get your tree lessons on again with one of those beautiful African sisters.
Oh no, I'm fully locked down, you know, sis. I'm fully locked down, bro.
Okay, got you.
I'm locked down right now, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm finished today. I'm locked down, you know what I mean? You get me?
All right, no problem.
Other than the fact that you know, we was having a good conversation about polygamy the other day, but that's it. You get me? Other than that, I'm finished. You know what I mean? I'm done. Yeah. That's a joke, by the way, Kings and Queens. Right, Kevin.
Majo. What is that?
Boko, no, what's that?
Boko. So this is Kevin. I'm actually one of the administrators, Shakara. I was on the other day when you had the Maurice Bishop on, and I actually took the Tree languages with Dr. Obadele Kambo.
Oh yes, I remember you commenting. Yes. Greetings, my brother.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very important. I'm listening to the conversation about the language, right? Because I had another conversation, you know, and for me, I took the Tree with Dr. Kambo, and I took Wolof. I'm actually studying Medu Necha right now on our site. Okay. So what I'm finding is that just the cultural understanding that we have, and the very limiting in terms of expressing
African spirituality or African worldview in any Eurasian language is really strangles us. So this is why we don't have true education in our schools. We have what we call schooling. So I very encourage people to join the African languages and learn, because it will open up your idea into just a deep worldview. And one point, for example, I work here in the States, and I have a sister who's from Ghana, and immediately I started speaking Twi to her, and her first comment to me was, "Why are you learning Twi?"
Yeah.
So it's kind of shocking to learn, but it does break down a lot of barriers in terms of the miscommunication between Africans on diaspora and Africans on the continent. When you learn the language, it opens up a lot of doors. So I just want to contribute to that.
Absolutely.
Learning the language in the States, yeah? Because you say you're learning Twi and Wolof.
Wolof, Twi. I started the Yoruba, but I'm learning Medu Neter as well.
Are you finding it? How are you finding it to learn all of those languages together?
Well, I find it, once you learn one and you understand the thought process of Africans in terms of their worldview and how they express themselves in their languages, I find it easy to learn another one.
Learn the other one, because I hear that it's funny, you know, it's one of them things, because I've been a Pan-Africanist organizer all of my life, and the issue of learning in African languages has always been on the agenda. But it's one of them things that we haven't instituted enough in the community. You know what I'm saying? Having said that, there are a number of African language schools developing at the minute, which is a beautiful positive thing. But it's just one of them things where, as a community, we haven't developed it enough. So, it's in the sense that those of us who do speak an African language, let's say an African language, don't often always get the chance to use it in the community. You understand what I'm saying? And so I'm wondering about that. How often do you get to use the language in your living environment?
So I kind of seek them out, right? So living here in New Jersey now, the interesting thing is that I have a sister that I used to work in New York, and she's actually Ga. Right. So she speaks a totally different language, different dialect of Ga, but she understands Twi. So what she would do for me is she would not speak to me in English at all.
Yeah, but
then, of course, we have on the bb2me.com, we have people from all places in Africa where we come together and you can live chat. You know, you can type to each other, you can talk to each other, communicate to each other, to create that virtual context where you have to use the language. So that's another way to do it as well.
Beautiful. Well, as I said, you know, you're gonna see me on bb2me.com soon. You know what I'm saying? As soon as we sort out a couple of things. But yeah, my son will be raised speaking Twi. I'm determined about that. You know, we have to just correct. You know, sometimes what certain things are not necessarily corrected for one generation, we have to correct it for the next. You know what I'm saying?
Here's another thing I can add too, is that it's not enough. So what we find. So we're trying to get every single African language represented on bb2me. So what we found is that you'll have people who will teach the language, but they won't teach the language from a cultural African worldview perspective.
Yes.
And you might get the people from Peace Corps that might teach you to speak the language, but they're not bringing to you the cultural connotations that come with it. Just the African worldview in terms of they might teach it from you're disparate from another language. So what we learned is that we learned the thought process that goes into our creation story. Our everything has a cultural continuity across the continent. So once you learn one language, you'll know that this is not something that's isolated in Twi. You'll find the same concept in Yoruba. You'll find the same concepts in Kikuyu. So from that point, it's very important to seek out the people who have that cultural background.
Definitely. Thank you for that contribution there, my brother, and thank you for joining that conversation. Sorry, the feed on the Grenada Revolution the other day. You know, we're just trying to educate. You know, we have to remember these events in our history. You know, there's so many lessons to be learned in so many different ways, and what I'm particularly motivated by in terms of Grenada is the systems of government that they were developing, because when you look into it, it's so very African centered. And there are levels to which they would have been aware of that when they were doing what they were doing. You know what I'm saying? Some would have been aware of more than others, but it just goes to show that you can take the African out of Africa, but you can't take Africa out of the African. And even as much, you know, we're gonna some people will give the credit to Marx, and Engels and Lenin and whoever else and Castro. But when you look at it, you know what I'm saying, they were in the process of developing things well beyond anything that you would read in any of these individuals. So
actually, you know, you bring that point up about the African communities. We watched a documentary recently by Dr. Kemet Shockley. He's a professor at Howard University in the States.
I'm familiar.
And they did a documentary called Humanity, Community. It's about the Palenque in Colombia. And he did a documentary, and it goes into the interworkings of how they structured their community. Now, the people themselves say they come from the Congo.
Right.
Angola and the Congo. Now, they structured their community. Now, in 400 years of existence, they had 3 violent crimes.
Wow.
There's no police.
That sounds like madness to most people, innit? So we give thanks for that contribution right there. Right, family. It's looking like my potential second wife is not jumping on the chat. So we're gonna wrap up the show. And yeah, what I want to do though is make sure that brothers and sisters know how to contact Sister Shakina and Brother Obadele. You know what I'm saying, in terms of their work. So Sister Shakina, if you go ahead and let people know how they can contact you, and if you got the website, the web address for the African Diaspora Fraternity Association, let people know. I know it's not up yet, but if you bought the domain name, then let people know and they can come up to it later.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. We're still in the early stages. We're just navigating the write up on it at the moment. Well, that's my job, right. But we're hoping to do that soon. But there is a Facebook page, the African Diaspora Attorneys Association, and I try to update that as much as possible so that people know what's going on. But if people want to contact me personally, they can email me on Nubian544 at AOL.com. I'll repeat that, Nubian544 at AOL.com.
All right, beautiful. Sister Iffy, what are you talking about? Who's a married man? I'm confused. There's some love connection going on in the chat, or some potential love connection going on, or some intended love connection going on. I don't know if yeah. I don't know if over there is looking for a second wife, You have to talk to his queen about that still. You know what I mean?
The discussions are ongoing.
Indeed. All right, well, we'll see what I'm going.
Her interest in re-Africanization goes only so far. Once it gets the de-whiteization breaks down.
Indeed. I totally hear that. I think that's the case for a lot of people. So what I mean, we'll move on from there. But you know what? No, bro. I would love to talk to the two of you at some point though, as a family. To have a family conversation. If you would be open to that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
What I mean? The reason being is because I feel like the family perspective in terms of Pan-Africanism and activism and liberation and them kind of things there is one of the most underappreciated aspects of it. And I think that you've obviously established a very viable working and functional family structure with all the things that you're doing. So it would be beautiful to really present that to the world.
Yeah, definitely. I would be open to that. Now, real quick, even when you mentioned that you were going to do this, and I think we're streaming live on YouTube, right?
Yes, indeed.
So, one of the challenges that I have, or one of the policies that I have in general, is that I only interact with African people on African platforms.
Yes.
So all the people, if you say you're about Pan-Africanism and this, that, and the third, and you're only on Crackerbook and YouTube and Nitwitter and all these things, it really makes me like, there has to be an improvement, on that. So, we have abibitumi.com where it's African owned, African operated, and only African people are allowed on that site. Yeah. If you are non-African, you are not even allowed there. So every day I got people coming to me and saying, oh, I got put in Crackerbook jail. Oh, they banned my thing or whatever. I don't even know what the terminology is. And I'm like, we have our own thing, right? But this is, the same thing that we deal with the white man's ice is colder. So even when we have a platform, a viable platform where we can connect with each other without dealing with, these things, it's me and Ajakwa Joe, who's on the line, we say that we are dentists because trying to get black people to do black things is like pulling teeth. But that to the side, I would like to invite everyone who's on the line right now to join Abibi Tumi. And what it is a platform where you can interact exclusively with African people who are about African liberation, so much so that they are not on any of the cracker social media, and they are only on African social media. That should tell you something about how serious those Africans are. That's one. But for those who are interested in contacting me as well, you can contact me through abibitumi.com or repatriate2ghana.com. The emails for both of those are support@abibitumi.com or support@repatriate2ghana.com. And then you can interact with me anytime. So I have quite a few videos out there. One thing that I tell people, that if you comment on my video outside of the African platform, I will never respond to you. If you comment on a YouTube video and so save my life in quicksand, you guess what? You're gonna get swallowed up by that quicksand because I have a policy. I'm not gonna communicate with you unless you're on a black platform. So we have that black platform, and I want everyone to, feel welcome and invited to interact with other Africans on our own thing. No more integrationism.
Definitely, kings and queens. You know what I mean? And these are the stances that we're gonna have to eventually start taking on a more collective level if we want to build our own things. You know what I mean? We're talking about all this stuff, but then we have to get to the point whereby, if Sister Shakina is connected to people that are selling cashew, that are growing cashew and mango, that we're only buying from people that are importing their cashew and mango from Gambia, or you know what I'm saying, or from Ghana or wherever it is, kings and queens. You have to get there, you know what I mean? But as they're just saying, to count sand, you start from where you stand. So, and every journey begins in the first step. So we're gonna walk towards those stages of development, kings and queens, from where we are at, whilst we are educating our people about the possibility, of walking with us towards these destinations. I just want to thank Sister Shakina Chinedu and Brother Obadele Kambon for allowing me to facilitate this conversation. It has been a powerful one. I'm sure the listeners have enjoyed. I do want to say, like the video, kings and queens, and if you have enjoyed the conversation, give me a 9 in the chat at Awesome Red Black Green. Let me know that you've enjoyed the conversation. Show your love for Sister Shakina and Brother Obadele Kambon. For those who are awaiting me to reschedule my conversation with Professor Kwesi Pra, I am trying, kings and queens, so do stay tuned. We're going to try and bring that to you soon. Professor Kwesi Pra, powerful elder linguist in our community, doing some serious work in terms of Pan-African language development. But either way, we will be speaking to Brother Obadele Kambon soon on the issue of languages and language development in Africa. As you can see, he's an African language master, kings and queens, and so we're going to be developing that with him as well. All right. This has been once again a beautiful conversation. Do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more on African spirituality, Pan-Africanism, and all things blackity black, because that's how we do it around here. I want to send a special shout out to my brothers and sisters of Constructive Convos. Do subscribe to Constructive Convos on YouTube. This YouTube Constructive Convos every Monday from 9:30 p.m. UK time. There is a conversation being had. You know what I mean? And any of my Constructive Convo brothers and sisters, feel free to leave the link in the chat so that people can, go and subscribe to the channel. Bigging up all the people that joined the conversation. Bigging up my brother Scattered. Bigging up brother. You, I'm seeing Kevin here, but I heard I heard an African name a minute ago. So we're gonna discard the link.
Quadjo.
Right, my brother Quadjo. So that's who. Yeah. And bro, change that name on the thing. You know what I mean? Because it's causing confusion. I'm joking. But yeah, brother Quadjo, brother Terry. Brother Witness, and Brother E Black joined us as well. You know what I mean? I do appreciate the interaction. We will be back to Kings and Queens very, very soon, addressing more of said issues. I've just enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to seeing you all on the continent of Africa very, very soon. Uncle Justin Neb, life, prosperity, and health, as spoken in the ancient Kemetic language. Tendai Mwari, we give thanks unto the Most High, Mother, Father, Creator of the universe, as spoken in the Shona language of Zimbabwe. African power for all African people. And in fact, to close the show, I'm going to get Brother Obadele to say African power for all African people in Tree. Go ahead, bro.
Abibi tumi ma abibi fonyina. Abibi tumi ma abibi fonyina.
There we go, Kings and Queens. Tendai Mwari.